getting to that point where she didn't want us to do our thing. We wanted to, you know, we wanted to protect ourselves and look at our deals ourselves, not so everything I teach you now, right? It's how I learned it, by the way. It was the hard way. So you'll get to be able to be persuasive. You'll be able to like get your points across, and, you know, just know that if you're coming from a good place, then this is nothing, there's nothing evil about this. If you're coming from a negative place, obviously it can be, but if you're coming from a good place, then this is a really, really strong technique. It's very important to understand. It's very important to use these tactics to get everything you need. So, you know, also they're very, very strong on getting private money, all these things. So I'm going to go through them, and then I'm leaving these documents open. Can everybody, let me share my screen so you guys can see. And I'll leave my documents open, so if there's anything you want to add to this, then we will add some stuff. So I'll only put a couple things to start the discussion. And this is the title topic. So decisive communications for top house flippers. And then as we go through this, what we're going to do is if you have any questions or you have anything that you want to add or some good ideas, then I'll add some stuff as we go along. And then I'll give you guys the PowerPoint so you can, you know, or like a PDF or something you can check out, read, you know, just kind of reminding you of the work we did today. Because it's important stuff, and it's stuff that you will get. Basically, all I'm trying to do today is get you aware of it, and then you'll have to study it and practice it. But now in the future, if we talk about one of these topics, you'll understand what I'm talking about, why, and we'll be on the same page. And then we can explore how it could help you get your deal done better, make more money, right? Ray, you've seen the level of like what we do, and Mike, you've seen the level of what we do when we're selling a house. We go crazy, right? I mean, we put a lot of effort into it. Me and Mike, actually, and I'm sure you didn't mind me sharing this, he just got, he didn't get his first flip, but he got like his first flip being my student. And it was his first flip that he actually bought. And he has two now, actually, but one he bought, and he bought from a wholesaler, and he got it. And the level of detail that me and him are going over, we're hours into it right now. And I have to be honest, just at the end of like the day, when we were like an hour, 15 minutes in the call, we were like both just like, yeah, this deal looks good. Right? We looked at it from like 6 different angles. We looked at the comps multiple times. I mean, we really went above and beyond. And that's what I do on every house, by the way. Now, do I have to do that 900 houses in? No, I don't have to do it as much, because the same thing for Mike. Like if he starts doing deals in this area called Hamilton, well, I have a Hamilton in Baltimore. I do deals. And if you ask me a question about Hamilton in my Baltimore area, well, I know a lot about it. So I'd already done that research on so many houses that, you know, I can give you a high level of detail on it. So we're digging deep. Now, the big part of like these communication skills is like, I have to convince Mike, right, to dig deep. Now, that's not manipulative, but it's what it is. I have to be persuasive, because Mike's like, this is a lot of work. And he gets it after it's done. He's like, oh, dude, thank you. Like, that's a lot of work, and I'm going to get a great result. But if I don't know how to articulate to Mike why it's so powerful to do, well, then guess what? He might end up doing 70% of the work, and then it might cause a bad result. So it is important, like if we're going to get results for ourselves, results out of our team members. Now I'm giving you this scenario where I have to be persuasive with you guys to help change your beliefs and your thinking so that you can, you know, for your best interest to get the best results. Well, imagine when you start hiring employees, you have to do the same thing with them. So this stuff is really very good. I mean, I use it every single day on sellers. I use it every day on contractors, and I have to use it every day with my employees, and, you know, making sure I keep them motivated, keep them clear of what's going on. It's clear communication, right? So we'll get started. Let's see, this will actually work. And I'm going to start. So active listening is a really big one. And I always start with this one because I like to talk a lot. And one of my weaknesses for a long time was that I would put together these awesome sales pitches and then just go like the Energizer Bunny, you just let it loose, and it was like crazy. So I would just go because I just like to talk. And sometimes it was like a nervous reaction where I was over talking, and it really wasn't leaving room for me to get to know the person. So active listening is probably the most powerful small change. It ends up being a massive change, but just being a better listener. Just because if no one speaks, guess what will happen? The other person will speak. So if you ask the question, just let it sit, and they take quite a while to think through it, and you don't come in and add stuff or save them, you're going to get the most raw, best answer from them. You know, if you're like, so Ray, when was the first time that you found out that, you know, you were not a cool dude? I don't know.
When I went bald.
Yeah. When your hair couldn't even save you, huh? Your hair decided they hated you and left you.
Yeah. And since then, Since then, it's been downhill.
I bet. What's going next, buddy? You better become a nicer person. You don't want to. I can't even imagine what's next.
Oh.
It's not Anna. She'll stay. I'm saying, who knows? So you get my point. When we're really quiet after we say stuff, one thing with active listening is that you ask the question, you actively listen. So, and we actively listening, we don't say anything. We don't say, "Oh, okay." Yeah, no, we try to do none of that stuff. We just say it, listen, listen, listen. You can shake your head if you want, but it's hard to be quiet when people are talking. Very, very important. And we start to always then feed back what we hear once they stop talking. Okay. And there is a few seconds. I'm going to jump a little out of order here, but when somebody's done talking, it's super important that you give them a second or two in case they want to continue talking, especially with a motivated seller, especially with a contractor, because a lot of times people will run into a little bit of a roadblock. They can't just fluently speak. And we jump in whenever they're like kind of taking a little bit of break to kind of add some extra stuff. And the more people talk, the crazier it gets. So I can tell you, I've had people tell me things like, well, I'm like, hey, well, tell me why, what made you decide you want to sell now? And they'd be like, just a good idea, thinking we'd just be nice to get rid of the house. And I'd just say nothing. And they'd be like, you know what I mean? Right. Cause like, why we want the house? I mean, this thing's in pretty bad shape. And I would go, okay. Yeah. And they'd be like, yeah. And I mean, and obviously it's a good time of year to sell. And, like everybody says spring's a really good time. And, and then it'd be like, well, we really just don't like it either. And then I'd be quiet, keep letting them talk. And then you're like, and, honestly, we're all arguing over it and it's really getting tough. Me and my sister haven't even talked for a while, and she's the other decision maker, and she just like left it to me. But like, I don't know what's going on. And I'm like 2 months behind on my mortgage. So the longer they talk, the more you see how it got deeper. It started with like, hey, just a good time to sell. That is the worst answer ever because that's what we call a surface answer. You get surface answers if you're not a good active listener, and then you never get to go deeper. Because when you get a surface answer, it really isn't doing nothing for you. It just misleads you. We really know nothing about that person. It's essentially a way to say, I'm not going to go too deep yet. And sometimes if we talk too much or we don't listen long enough or we don't keep enough pause in there, we won't allow them to go deep into the, I'm 2 months behind on my payments and all that stuff. So 1 second, Tanya's calling. Let me tell her I'm going to call. Good. And that's the stuff we want to know, by the way, right? Isn't it? We want to know more about like the real deep pain. But did you see how like it took about 6 or 7 times? And I'm telling you, the longer you don't talk, the more you let them talk. Well, 2 things happen. People automatically like you more the more you listen to them. So if you want to build rapport, this is the number one rapport building skill, active listening. I've seen people, so we don't interrupt. Very important. If you find yourself interrupting, then that's about you. Right. I used to be an interrupter because I would want to get my point across so much and I wouldn't care about what they're saying. So what they're saying, and then also another trap is if what they're saying is incorrect, it's highly important that you don't correct them and you don't interrupt them. Just let them talk, let them have their beliefs. You not saying anything doesn't mean that it's real. It just means that you agree and you're on board with them. You always have time later to come back and defend against stuff if it comes up again. I generally give no value to anything anyone says until they've said it more than 1 or 2 times. So if someone says something crazy, like it's tax assessed for 250,000, and I'd be like, yeah, okay, great. If they say it like 2 or 3 times, then I'll probably say, okay, well, let's talk a little more about that. But if they only say it once, they don't really believe it. They're just throwing it out there. They don't really care. I mean, people say a lot of random things that they're not totally committed to because they don't know, right? They're even in their head, they probably have doubt. They probably have doubt that the tax assessment's not accurate. I don't think you have to tell anyone that. Most people know that. If they say it 2 or 3 times, then it's a belief, right? It's probably something they strongly believe, and we're going to have to defend against that belief. And we'll talk a little bit later about how we do that. Let's start an open discussion around each slide. I want to have an open discussion about any active listening techniques that we can talk about.
Do do you mirror them a lot? Like to try and just like if they say like 200,000, you're like, yeah, 200,000, or just try and just be quiet the most you can and not even bother much.
I kind of do it like a customer service rep, right? Like I have no stake in the game. Oh, 200,000. Okay. Just write it down. That's it. Let's take a note. It's not time to argue yet, right? It's not time to defend
Yeah,
the 200,000. Defend the 200,000 when you present to them, right? That's when you
yeah,
defend it.
yeah.
So that's a good, actually. So Gerhard, I added something for active listening. If they make a statement you don't agree with, let's actually write that down. Don't correct statements, because that's basically like the 200K. I'm assuming you don't agree with the 200K, right, Gerhard? In your scenario, is that you're probably like, yeah, 200K, I'm going to offer you 100, and that's why you're even
Mm.
mentioning it. So yeah, we don't correct them, right? Don't, no reason to,
I have
unless
a
they.
I have a hard time not to interrupt them. I was like, okay, I need to let me tell you, you're wasting my time.
You know what? That's part of being a D, by the way. That's that D personality. And when you're a higher D, we tend to be like, we want to take charge. It's easy for us to do that. So I've had to learn to be a listener, and it's everyday battle, by the way. I'm working on it. So yes, these are great techniques for you then, because as a D, you're a very powerful person, and you have the ability to really get what you want. You have the ability to be assertive when necessary. But what people's negative feedback about these would be that we don't listen, and that we're really in our own heads and not really caring about other people. So a lot of what we're teaching right now is where we can take, and you can have the best of both worlds. One of the reasons I believe that I'm so good out at doing this is because from a D standpoint, I could bully people into doing things almost, or, be very like assertive about it. But now I'm learning to take a more soft approach to it. But when I need to be assertive, I can. So I'm able to kind of play the field according to what's needed. I don't need to get real, tough on them, unless sometimes I do. Sometimes people make me have to be tough, but now for the most part, I'm able to get things with little effort. And I kind of like the little effort way. It's a lot more fun that way, honestly, to do the little effort way. So that's a big thing. So don't correct them. What other feedbacks anybody have on the call? I'd love to hear more about active listening. Who here thinks they're a good listener?
I think I'm pretty good. I sense it a lot of sellers when I meet them at their house for the first time. Like they're very apprehensive. Like they've never sold their house to an investor before. They're not really sure what we can do for them, like how much we can pay them. They're probably afraid that we're trying to take advantage of them. And how I combat that is I just ask them questions like, so what would you like to have happen? Where did you find out about me? What were you looking? What were you hoping I could do for you? I'll start off by saying, well, I'll introduce myself. I'm an investor looking to buy houses where I can buy, sell, make a small profit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm looking to buy as low as possible, and you're a seller. You're probably looking to sell it for as high as possible. I'm hoping we can meet somewhere in the middle. Find a common ground, agree on a price, and hopefully I can help you out. If not, that's okay. I don't buy every house I look at, and then I just start asking like a series of questions about them, and just open it up to them. I don't talk much more after that. Good. I want to get as much information from them as possible before I even talk like what I can offer them, how much, how talk dollars, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then
I agree.
That's how they get to trust me, because they I guess because like they're doing most of the talking, like I'm just there to find out what they need, right, before I even make my offer.
Yep. That's actually very it's not seen that much. You guys might think a lot of people are great listeners, but most people are taught like this whole sales thing. They come out with a little thing and they turn it like, yeah, okay. It's kind of like our presentation, but the whole thing is just presenting essentially. You think about what we do. We might spend 2 hours with someone before we present. My presentation on most of my stuff's like 5 or 10 minutes, right? Unless they're like really analytical and they want to go through the presentation, but most people don't care about the presentation. They care about you listening to them. They want to feel that you understand them and that you're on the same page with them. If you can get someone to understand like that, or actually feel that you understand them and that you get them, that's the best rapport you can build. Because if you understand them, and now what is the best way to make someone understand? Listen to them, right? If they don't feel heard, then they don't think you've heard them. That was like some like ninja stuff. I was like, hold on, I have to think about that one. So let them know. Let's just put then let them know you understand. So you remember one of the words we talked about when I was like, hey, I understand, right? I always kept saying, I understand. Let them know you understand. So that's why we talked about that. Remember in the 3-day boot camp, every time before I started something, when I would disagree with them, I'd be like, I understand. I see where you're coming from. And then I would like correct them or give them some other, feedback. But let me give you another point of view or something. I would say, hey, here's another point of view and let me know what you think about that. And you see, it's just a really nice way to be able to have an open discussion about stuff. So not always my easiest thing to do. Any other active listening tips that anyone wants to share before we move to the next one?
Do you repeat like things I say?
Mhm.
So if he says the roof is bad, you go the roof. Stuff like that.
You can if you'd like. Do you feel comfortable doing that?
Sometimes I try to, just to keep the conversation going, because they keep on going, saying more.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the thing is if they bring up something more than once, like, so one time I spoke to a guy and he must have said to me 3 times, he doesn't want anybody to move in because they're gonna, he likes to hunt in his backyard, so something like that is, I figured like you would say that back to him and then he would elaborate more on that.
So here's that's a technique that I've seen work and it does work. Now I don't always feel comfortable doing it because it don't feel natural to me. So a lot of these techniques, I'm giving you a ton of stuff. If it feels natural to you and you want to do it, do it. You don't necessarily have to do that. You could easily, and we're going to get into this later, if someone's like, I don't want anybody moving in because I'm the hunt. You're like, oh, really? Well, that's interesting position that you have. Can you tell me more about that? Like, that's it. Just tell me more about it. Oh, you could repeat it and then say, tell me more about that. That's kind of how I would do it. I think it's a little weird when you're just like, oh, so you don't like to hunt or you don't want people to move in. I usually say, oh, you don't want people to move in. Tell me more about that. I just personally like that. It's me controlling the conversation a little more. I can control where they go with it. If I say, tell me more about that, or, explain more, or, can you elaborate on that? Anything, just to, get them to talk more about it. Because if you just repeat it, they might just be like, yep. So that's what I've seen when I don't say, tell me more about it. You're like, yeah. So you could, use it whatever way you like. It does work, and it is a great way to repeat what they say. I just like to add a little something to it so I get a result. How about anybody else?
I think eye contact. I think it's so easy with phones these days to be distracted. And even if you pull your phone out to turn it down and mute it or something, I think eye contact's.
You guys are going to love that one. There is no phone in the appointments. And if you do, turn it off or, put it on silent, no ring, no vibrate, no nothing.
It just breaks the whole thing up.
Yeah. It's super distracting. And, you 100%, even when you go just hit the button, it's a break in rapport. So, I mean, it's just your phone's ringing and, you're losing the connection you're building. So, yeah, don't take the phone in an appointment. If you do, just turn it off. So, if you don't want to leave it in your car or something, but your phone can't, like, when you're going deep with someone and they get close to really giving you some like great stuff that's really going to help you help them, you wouldn't want your phone to ring or vibrate. Because I've seen my phone vibrates, it just breaks my whole pattern. It's completely like, I don't know. We've been trained that our phone is almost like it's like a little dinner bell or something.
And then it's going to break that awkward silence you tried to create.
Yeah. Yeah,
at the wrong time.
Exactly. It would do that. It would be like, hey, what happened? I had a perfect awkward silence going and the phone rang. Let's go to the next one. Conversation extenders. This is a really cool subject. I think I invented this one. I learned it through a bunch of techniques, and I just realized when I was breaking down, I was listening to a lot of my like calls with people, and people are like, well, you can just sit there and talk forever. Right. And I realized that I got good at like conversation extenders and like it's getting them to go deeper. So a big part of being able to get the information you need is not letting it go surface level, right? We have to have some things that we say that help them talk more, right? So like we talked about the dead silence, that's one, but also like just saying, that's interesting, right? And then just being quiet. They'll almost always explain it. As soon as you say, that's interesting, it's like you're qualifying them. And what are they going to want to do? Well, yeah, Mike, Mike, that's the reason you do that. You take your phone into your appointments because, you want it to ring, and then you can say your wife's calling you, and then you can get out of there if they're talking too much. Right. So you see what I mean? That's like, if you just like shut up, then and you say, that's interesting, they will qualify themselves and tell you why they just told you what they told you. What's always really interesting is they almost always will tell you why they told you what they told you already. And they'll tell you a different reason than they already told you, because they're just digging deeper and they're making their case, and you're getting a chance to be exposed to their beliefs. Right. This is what this is all about. We all have different beliefs, and our job is to gain an understanding of their beliefs. And that's why we're using these techniques, is because we want to understand people's beliefs, and so that we can help them reframe those beliefs if necessary, or we can support those beliefs if they're accurate. So conversation senders, tell me more about that, right? Oh, really? Really, Ray? That's what you do? Really? Wow. Okay. Or, oh, wow, really? You can say it many different ways. So there really has like 8 different meanings to it, depending on how you say it, right? You guys realize that there is tonality. If you're like, really? Really? What? Really? Like, okay, that's what you say to your kid when they like shit on the floor, the dog shits on the floor. Like, really? Come on. God, I got the scooper. I trained you. Look, Gerhard just got back. He probably just got back from a turd, right? He's like, yeah, it just happened to me. Really? Did you go, really? Yeah, so it's all about the tonality. Like, really? Oh, man. But if you're like, oh, really? Right? Or really? So practice saying really like 50 different ways, because it's a really great weapon. And a lot of these are great weapons because they can be used to kind of keep things going. And how did you do that, right? If they're like, well, we did this, and we talked to a bunch of contractors, right? Repeat it like Gerhard said, and then say, oh, how did you do that, right? Or what made you do that, or what made you think of that, right? You see, if you ask these questions, you keep them talking. So this is all part of being an active listener. These 2 slides really go together, because active listening, you're going to get people that don't talk very much. So it's easy to be an active listener when people say 5 words. What I've gotten very good at over the years is taking people who initially, when we first start talking, they kind of make me do the talking and do all the heavy lifting. And I get really good at kind of keep just landing it on them, making them comfortable, keep pushing them. If I can get someone who doesn't normally talk to me, then I promise you will build a connection with them that very few other people who come in will build. I'll give you a great example of it, a story. My Kim, who works for me, her nephew, he went to Choice Center and did the training, the emotional intelligence training. He is the least talkative dude I've ever met. Like, he hung with me for like days, and I tried to break him and get him to talk, and he just would not talk. And then just one time I said something to him about like hey man, you like video games? He's like, oh yeah, I like this video game. And oh my God, like I ain't heard him in like the 5 years I knew him. I don't think he said like 6 sentences to me in 5 years. I started talking about this video game. He was going crazy because he's into this video game. So his whole life, apparently, he apparently cannot even think about anything else but a video game. But it's his thing, right? And for me, like the thing that works like that for me is if you were like, hey Mike, I heard you're a house flipper, man. Like, that's pretty cool. Tell me about that. Oh my God, dude, that's like me in the video. It's like him with the video game, right? It would be the easiest way to get me to talk, is to find out what I'm passionate about and what I love, right? Often it ain't selling that house to you. So if you see something around the house, like softballs, or you just see anything, just you hear them say, I got to go to an appointment tomorrow, or I got to go to a bowling thing, or whatever you think they might do. We're going fishing next week, so I won't be able to talk to you then. Oh, you're going fishing next week. Wow, that's cool. Like, what kind of fishing do you? How long have you been fishing? Right? You never miss an opportunity if they tell you about something they like, because every single time where I've taken a super like shut down, not talkative person, it's whenever, if I can get lucky enough, I can't always get this from them, but if I can figure out what they like and what they're into, they turn around to a whole different person. They instantly like you. They just instantly like you. You know why? Because they don't like, quiet people don't like being quiet. It's just how they are. They've always gotten shit about it. Like, people always make fun of them. Like, they're never the life of the party. They're always the one in the corner, like I used to be when I was a teenager, just being a weirdo in the corner at the parties. So like, they never get an opportunity to be able to socialize and talk with people. And so if you help them be that person they've always wanted to be, someone who could hold a conversation and talk about stuff, they're going to have a deeper connection with you than most people. So I've been able to do that because if I hear them talk about anything at all, and I don't let that loose. That's a super powerful piece. So Tell me more about that. Oh, what made you decide to do that? Oh, you went on you became a professional softball player. Get out of here. Really? Like, what made you decide to do that? You see how we use the techniques? Like, it's always these things. You repeat something cool they said, and this is how we get into really, really good long conversations about absolutely nothing to do with the house, but everything to do with stuff they love. Because when we're talking about what they love, guess what? They love us. Their wives a lot of times don't even talk to them about this stuff, or are probably tired of hearing them talk about it. So they usually only talk with their best buddies, right? Think about it. Like, they're close friends. Like, most people have a couple close friends. And why do we love being around our close friends? Like, we can talk to our close friends about anything. We can just be like, they don't judge us. They don't care. We can talk about stupid stuff, and we just have a lot of fun. So you want to mimic that a little bit and make them comfortable and have that close friend feel. Do you guys have anybody in the group have any extenders they can add, like ways to extend the conversation? That was a good one, whoever said that. I think it was just me, but.
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah, jump in, man.
Once in a while, if I want to go deeper, like I want to know like why they're asking me something, I'll say something like, you asked me a question about blah. Why?
Yeah, I like
why.
that. I don't like how you're saying it, but you like, why? No, I was like, but so let's think if we can add a little something to soften it up some. It's like, but it's a super good question, right? I like the question. I just like, what can we do to soften it or make it just a little better? Because if we ask any question a little abruptly, then it could be taken in different contexts. So I feel like why, it could be feeling a little challenging, right? A little bit challenging, but I'm not saying you shouldn't ask why. You asked me a question about, give me an example, Mike, of something that they asked you a question about, if you can remember.
Like the seller? Yeah. Okay.
You asked me a question about this.
How much can you pay for my house?
Oh, you asked me a question about how much you can pay.
Yeah,
Why?
How much do you pay for houses? Yeah.
Oh, okay. You asked me a question about how much you can pay. Why? I had to give an example of how not to do it. All right, we'll start with, this is how you don't do it.
Maybe I was nervous, but yeah, I would soften it.
My go-to in that is very similar, and I feel like it's exactly what you're saying, but it's just said a little differently. And I learned this from Sandler, who trained John Martinez, and they all kind of come from the same stuff. Before John Martinez, there was Sandler, and I worked with Sandler for like 2 years, and I ended up hiring the guy who was my Sandler coach. He actually owned a Sandler franchise, and he wanted to get out of the business because he didn't like all the cold calling and all the crazy stuff. So he came to work for me, and he was my acquisitions guy for quite a while, and until he retired, actually, for about 2 years, something like that. He was kind of a goofball, but he was great at sales, but he definitely was a negative dude. He's the one who taught me this. He's like, oh, that's an interesting question. There must be a reason you asked. Right. And that was like the number one thing. So it's like, well, how much can you pay for the house? I mean, well, that's interesting. I haven't even seen it yet, but that's, you might say, well, I haven't seen it yet. That's an interesting question, though. I mean, what made you ask? Right? What made you ask, or what inspired you to ask? Something, I don't know. Like, what made you ask seems pretty calm. If you're going to say something that might seem a little combative or a little defensive, then just say it in a nice way. Because you can get away with saying a lot of stuff if you say, like, it's just like, yeah, just soften it down big time. You could say exactly like, oh, you asked me about a price for the property. I'm just wondering why. Right? Just say, oh, I'm just wondering why. Like, very soft. But if you're like, why? Or you're like, well, I'm wondering why. So it's much like what we talked about with that really. There's a lot of different ways you can say it. So some of these things, if you don't say them correctly, could make you like, what the hell did Mike just teach me? You'd be like, well, Mike Green teaches some crazy stuff. People went nuts on me. So yeah, you want to make sure you say it properly, right? It's on how you say it. You don't want to say things too abruptly. You want to say them very, very caring, like put some feeling into it. Oh, it's, oh, wow, that's like, Mike, that's a super interesting question. Man, tell me why. Or, what made you ask that? And you asked it in this really nice way. You can say almost anything you want. So good stuff. I like the why, though. We talked about that before. So we're going to go into mirror and matching. Has anybody ever heard of mirroring and matching before?
Yes, I heard about it. Hi, Mike,
Oh,
from the Never Split the Difference.
oh, cool. Yes. And that's a
Yeah,
good, that book does
I
talk
read
about.
that book. Yeah.
Okay. And so this has been out. Well, obviously he didn't invent this. This has been invented for many, many years. Like most people that write books about any of these subjects, we're all just kind of stealing old ideas and learning them, putting our own spin on them. So for me, a lot of what I'm teaching you is the spin of how to use it in real estate. Just like John Martinez teaches that spin, and he's the only other guy out there. Because most people just don't teach it specifically for real estate. I had to hire and spent like $30,000 with Sandler, and ended up hiring a Sandler trainer to work for me for 2 years after that to get a lot of this stuff. So it was very expensive because he gave me the techniques, but what I had to do was then take and transcribe those techniques into real life real estate experience. Like, what would I use them for? So it's pretty cool stuff. So mirror and matching, the overall concept is pretty cool. Whenever we're talking with someone, it's always about trying to like build rapport with them. So what we do is we mirror and match them. If they have a tone that they speak at, so if they're Southern, they might have a very slow drawl. They might be like, or if they're older, they might talk very slow. Then our job would be to take our time and talk very slow. And, it doesn't, we don't have to talk like them. We don't have to start having like Sabina wouldn't have to start getting a country accent, because that might seem a little inauthentic, right? Where she's like, okay, y'all, it would sound, that would be fun, but probably they would know that was fake, right? But she could easily take, if he's talking very slow, she could easily talk slower, right? If he talks a little bit lower and quiet, she can talk a little quieter. But if she's like very loud and he's very soft and slow and she's very fast, it's breaking rapport. It's a subconscious break in rapport. Logically on paper, it makes zero sense why someone would judge you over this, but they will, right? I mean, how many people in our lives have we deemed that we like them for reasons beyond what we even understand? Like, right? If we like people, it's often because they are enough like us that we decide that there would be a good fit to be a friend or be someone that we do business with. It has a lot to do, like how similar are they as us? So even if you are a doctor from Aberjan, is that the name? And like, some dude it's from like, I don't even know, from the hood maybe, that's selling you a house. Like, you guys probably don't have a ton in common, but think of the commonalities you have. Like, you do have a lot in common, because as humans, we all have a lot in common. And we'll work on that when we get to the commonalities part, because that's the key to this. But the first thing you can have in common is your rate of speech and tone. You don't have to sound like them. You just want to talk the same tone as them. Like, if they're loud, you're going to talk a little louder. If they're soft, you talk a little softer, a little slower. You're going to listen. You got to get more patient. If you hear them talking slow, you got to instantly turn it down and just be like, all right, we're going to be here a while. We're going to talk slow stuff. We're going to talk about 3 sentences for an hour. And it's hard for me because I like to talk fast. I got a lot of ideas and stuff's going on. I'm a pretty quick talker. And I actually had an old guy one time tell me that. And he's like, you talk fast. And it was my lender, by the way, who he's like 90 years old. He's worth like 40 million bucks. And he just like, he asked me a question. I answered it. Like, how I am. I succinctly was like, look, you do this, and this. He just looks at me. He's like, yeah, you got the right answers, but you talk fast. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, and I like judged him. This is like 4 years ago. I had an understanding of this, but not a high level understanding like now. And I was just like, that was a weird thing to say. And he broke rapport with me. Now he doesn't care because he's got $40 million. So he don't want to build rapport with too many people. He can just run around and be a turd if he wants, because he's got a lot of money, and who cares, right? It says he's the guy, he's in charge. But it was my job to build rapport with him. And I definitely did not mirror and match with him. I feel like we would have been there a really long time if I did. But that was a lesson for me, and I still do it today. And I just try to adjust as much as possible when I realize I'm doing it. Mirror and matching, then body. The last piece, we do the tone, the speed, then body is really important. So they talk about, like, if they cross your arms, you cross your arms. You don't have to get too crazy with this. But if someone is, standing tall, then you try to stand tall with them a little bit, right? Don't be like this, and don't be over here like this, leaning like this. If they're not doing it, if they are sitting up and talking and they got their hands crossed, you could easily just cross your hands. Just very subtle. You don't want this to be like too crazy, but very subtle little things like that will create a subconscious bond. But the most important part of this would definitely be tone of speech and rate of speech, right? That's the key. Because then when you start just, because now it feels like the conversation doesn't feel stressed. So a couple things that I've seen a few people do before in the group, actually, and I've done it before, is if you don't understand something, you interrupt kind of like, you're like, what did you say? Hold on. I didn't totally get that. That's a super big break in rapport. Well, I used to do this because I wanted to be clear. And I'm like, well, I didn't understand what they said. So like, tell me what you're saying. But what I realized is it was kind of so I had to realize now that I have to be okay with not understanding what they're saying and just be like, I'll figure it out. Like, and even sometimes I don't, but if I don't, I can always go back and ask, right? When they're done speaking, I can go back and say, hey, you said this one thing. Do you mind giving telling me a little more about that or elaborating on that? And man, then the conversation just goes so smoothly. Because if they're in the middle of a flow and then we stop them and say, oh, what did you say? I didn't understand that. What did you mean by that? And then like you broke their flow. And now as your coach, you can do that to me, by the way. Because I mean, if you don't understand me, you have permission to do it with me because you don't need to build rapport with me. We're friends, right? We all like each other. And my job is to give you the education. But when you do it with me, I don't care because I really want you to understand. And so you're okay to stop me and say, Mike, I didn't get that. Tell me more so you don't forget. But when we're doing it with owners, it's really highly important that we just let them talk because we don't have to understand everything they're saying. I have had people where I don't understand anything they're saying, right? Sometimes even like Glory, my new student who's from Africa, I don't understand half the stuff she says sometimes, but like, I'm just like, I'll figure it out, man. I'll piece the puzzle together. It's all good. And I do now. I've gotten better at understanding her now. But when you have an accent, or if someone talks really slow, or they have like so you don't have to have an accent because you're from another country. A lot of people have accents because they're from Baltimore, right? You ever hear like these Baltimore accents? You can't even understand half the stuff they're saying. Like I know I grew up there and I don't understand what people are saying sometimes. They're like, what did that mean? It's like slang and all this. So we just have to just be like, cool. We just listen. And just know that like, if we don't understand something, it's cool to come back and ask later, but do it when they're done talking, do it when they've run out of energy. Our job is just to let them completely run out of energy, get everything off their plate. And when we do that, then that's going to be awesome. Cause I can tell you, my Sandler coach, one thing that was a blessing for me is he got to go around with me for a long time and me and him would run appointments together and he would give me that feedback. And when he gave me the feedback, that was one of the things. He's like, you interrupted that person when they were like on a perfect flow. And I was like, but I didn't understand this. And he's like, why does that matter? He's like, your job's not to understand what they're saying. Your job's to listen. And if you don't understand, ask later, but like, don't interrupt their flow because it's hard to get people in a flow and it's hard to get them to share. And that's what we everything we do is so they'll share. So let them share and it's all about them, not about you understanding. It's about them, about them venting, right? Let them vent, let them get their problems off their chest, let them feel good. And then you can understand later. You have opportunity to ask questions and understand, but that doesn't come first. They come first, you come second. I was like, okay. I was a little mad when he gave me the feedback, actually. I was like, because I'm a little like, I don't want to hear. I was a little defensive. But I got over it, and it was good feedback. It was really good advice, actually. Any other mirroring and matching techniques anyone's ever used, heard about, or would like to anything they'd like to add to this one? I think we pretty much covered it. It's not as big of a subject as some of the others. So we talked about this one before. So some of you guys don't remember this conversation, but a really big part of communication tactics and techniques is commonality. So for the people who think that they're not as common as, like, say, a white guy, and I'm talking to an old white guy, well, I naturally feel like I might have something in common with them. But at some level, like, I'm thinking because we look alike, we have a lot in common, but do I really have a lot in common? I'm pretty sure they probably haven't gotten in trouble with the law when they were a teenager. They probably didn't grow up in the projects. They probably didn't, live the life I've lived, I would imagine. So I really don't have a ton in common with them from like a practical standpoint. But if we really break things down to like the overall standpoint, we all as humans have a lot in common. Right? I mean, if anybody wants to look this up, this is a pretty good note to take. If you look up Tony Robbins, I think it's called the 6 critical needs, maybe. It'll come up if you write that in, even if I got it wrong. And it really talks about that all humans have 6 critical needs. read that a little bit, because when you understand what the 6 critical needs are, you'll understand that every human has those 6 critical needs. And, you know, some people have stronger needs of the 6. Maybe they're more anchored in like a couple needs, like love. Sometimes like love's their big thing. Sometimes validation is their big need that they want. Whatever that need is for the other person, if you could start, you know, supplying them and helping them have that need. So if they like validation, you're like, wow, you're really smart, man. You figured this right out. Like, you did a great job on those comps when you said it was 200. Wow, you really hit that on the head, man. That's, even when it's not 200, I tell people how good of a job they did and how smart they were for figuring it out. But then I might mention that, oh, that's for houses that have already been renovated, right? I mean, someone in Pittsburgh called me today. I got a deal, I think, in Pittsburgh. She told me, yes, I got to get the paperwork, get it by her sister. But she told me they want 120K for it. They're like, we want to get 120K. That's what they're worth. And I was like, cool. I have no clue. It's in Pittsburgh. I don't know if it's worth $10 really. It's 8 hours away from us. I don't really know. So I was like, okay, awesome. And so when I called her back, I was like, wow, you really know your stuff. I went and did the numbers, and guess what? It's worth exactly 120K, like just like you said. And once I fix it up and make it beautiful, it'll sell for like 120K instantly. It'll really go quick. And I showed her a comps, and she's like, oh, I was thinking it was 120 now. And I was like, well, you know, I can understand why you would think that, because that's what things are selling for. But you did tell me your roof was caving in and the house hadn't been updated in like 30 years. So there has to be some money for that. And she's like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. We weren't really thinking about that. And I got her to 40K. So she's open to 40K. Now I made her an offer of 30, and she seemed close to accepting that. But the 40, when I talked to her about money, she told me her sister was really had her heart set on 40 and would like maybe shop around if we don't do 40. So I told her I'd be open to doing 40 and taking it for 30 days and trying to see if I can get a buyer. All right. I mean, hey, Pittsburgh's pretty close to Canada. Maybe Mike will shoot down there. I get him to come down, popping down. Steelers fans. If we got any Steelers fans, they can go there. So it's you know, it's, I don't know. I'm gonna try to remote sell it. I already worked out with it. I'm having to sign it up. I'm gonna have an inspector go through, do an inspection for me and do a video for me, and put a lockbox on for me. I'll probably pay $100-200 or something to do that. And you know, it'd be worth it to me, because you know, $100-200 and I get a chance to try to wholesale it. I don't know, if it don't work out, I have not lost nothing too big. So I might be doing my first deal out of state, because when I got the lead, it was like, it's a probate, it's in bad shape. I'm like, okay, I don't care where that is. If that thing is in like California, I want to try to do that deal, because that's the ultimate deal, that when we get those, it's amazing. So commonalities with her was, she basically was talking about her dad passing away, and I talked about my dad passing away, you know, and having to deal with his house, and then, you know, it was a headache, and I understood where she was coming from, right? A commonality of like, yeah, when I used to look at the houses too, and I would just see things sold for it, and I never considered the fact that, you know, you have to put the repairs in. So that was a commonality, just like that. And I used to think the same thing, you know, I do that too, or, you know, it's like and then also I use stories. Like I used the story of, you know, how I felt when I was with my dad. There's instant ways of connecting and creating commonality. Or, you know, if you went to college, that would be commonality. If you like certain foods, if anything they give you a hint of that, you know, oh, wow, you like Mexican food. You know, you wouldn't want to make it narrow, like, oh, you like burritos. Oh, I like tacos. They're way better. Right? That would like be a sucky way to have a conversation. You're like, holy crap, you like Mexican food? Mexican food is like my favorite. If it actually is, I don't want you lying about this, but anything you hear that you can generalize and then be like, oh, we have that in common, right? Or it could just be, and this is the reason I want you to look at the 6 critical needs. It could just be that you have a personality trait in common. Like, oh, you like to get right to the point. Hey man, I've always been that way. I like to get to the point also and be straightforward. I'm glad we're talking then. I'll make sure I do that for you. Right? See, because I have to get to the point. Oh, you like to know the numbers, so you're kind of an analyzer. Oh, me too. I love getting down to the numbers. Oh, you're like, when they're like, I just want my sister to be happy. Oh, you seem like a really caring person. My mom actually is a lot like you. She's one of the most beautiful people I've ever known, and she just loves everyone and is always about trying to help. Because I can't lie and say I'm that person, but I can say my mom is, right? Oh, I used to own this cat that was really caring like you. Don't tell them that. No, that's stupid. But maybe, because maybe a dog was dogs are more friendly. So you get my point. We can then go down and create commonalities based on personality traits even. And there's a really good chance that at some level, everyone will say, oh yeah, I like to be thorough and I like to do the details. So if you're a detailed person, you'll find that most people like the details, or like not to, oh, you're just looking to get the most money. It sounds like you just like to shop around and, you know, you're just trying to get the most for your family. That's awesome, man. I'm glad you're doing that. That's, you know, they seems like they got the right person to handle this, right? You see how we just give them a compliment, right? Now, am I going to offer anything more than 30K? Nope. Right. Because at the end of the day, by the time I'm done doing this presentation, I showed her why it was worth 30K, and I was making $15,000 on it, and she got it. But the only reason I'm doing 40 is because she has a expectation that she shared with me that her sister has. And we want to respect that expectation, because at the end of the day, that sister will kill the deal. Now, but that I'm not promising her 40. I'm just putting her under contract, and I get an opportunity to shop it around, see if I can get someone to pay more. So that's the whole point. That's what Gerhard actually did recently. He took something for considerably higher and then sold it for considerably higher than that.
Do you, if that comes up, like something like that, do you go like, well, my sister really wanted 40, go like, well, should we call her and let's talk about her a little bit more to try and convince the sister that 40 is not a good thing? Right? Because she's a
No, she is, but like in this scenario, wouldn't it be simpler to give her the 40 and get the opportunity? If it's in Pittsburgh, so I know, first of all, so here's a couple of reasons behind this, because context will matter, Gerhard. Well, it's in Pittsburgh, so I really don't want to buy it. So I'm looking for any reason. I want her to tell me something like, I don't want the 30. My biggest fear is she would have been like, I'll take the 30. And I'm like, holy crap, I just bought a house in Pittsburgh, or I don't really have to buy it, but like, I don't want to make a promise. So second she was like 40, I was like, well, look, there is something else I can do for you. And maybe this would be best, since your sister's really stuck on the 40. And I know you want to make sure she's happy and that you do good by her. You know, what if we just took, like, you know, don't seem like you're in a big rush. Why don't we just take 30 days and I'll take a shopping around to some of my other investors I work with in the area, and so I'll see if I can get you the 40. So for me, it allowed me to get the wholesale deal, Gerhard. I can always go back and battle the sister later. The sister's going to be more open to a negotiation once she's under contract. Does that make sense? And then we've had more time to get to know each other. I also have not talked to the sister. So just jumping on the phone and be like, hey, sister, here's why you're wrong. Like, that ain't going to go too well. I'd have to convince her to go call her sister and tell her why she's wrong. That would be the best thing, because she knows her sister. But even better would be, I probably, if I did a good job, I would have been like, hey, is there any other decision makers, and can we get them on the call? That's when you're hitting it really well, when you do that. But I didn't do that today because it was off a Facebook lead, off of somebody just messaging me in Messenger, and I don't even know who they were. And I was just like, when I heard the situation, I was like, I don't even care where you are. I kind of don't want to. I have a feeling I'm going to try to turn this into some money, or $100 loss. I don't know. Anything, no big deal. I want to see if I can do it. Because I like this concept of like remote wholesaling and a remote rehabbing, because I kind of use that same concept locally. So if something is 45, 50 minutes away, do you think I'm running back and forth to the house every day? Do you think I'm, going to meet clients just randomly, just for the fun of it? No, it's too much of my time, right? I don't go to things unless I'm pretty confident in what's going on. So with that being said, yeah, I don't know. The sister could be an issue, but I'm going to work through it. I was very nice with her. She seemed very sensitive. She seemed very like this was a lot for her. She's dealing with the loss of her dad. She was a younger lady, so she was definitely a little bit emotional. And I wanted to be very soft with the whole thing. I didn't think it was the time to like try to push her. I don't think that would have went very well. I have a feeling that just would have got her to say, okay, well, I'll call you back. And then I would have got ghosted probably. So I really have taken a very high level approach. Could lose the deal, but I'm not worried about it. I have a feeling it'll cause me to get really in the door with this deal, because the only real objection people mostly have is if they like and trust you, then their only objection is money. Does that make sense? So if they don't like and trust you, then they have a million objections, obviously. I don't know. They have so many reasons, but if they like and trust you, then you can get this down to just being like, okay, how much money do you need for the house? 40K is what she needs, not to have an argument with her sister. So I know the sister has her, I won this sister over, but I haven't won the other sister over. So the 40 is my first step to winning the other sister over. However, I am doing it with like a contingency of like, if I can't get 45, then I'm probably going to go ahead and give it back. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Commonalities. How have you ever found that you're common with anyone? Anybody have some good comment? Let's go back. I don't want to jump. What's some common things that you guys are common with, like feelings, emotions, just different stuff that you've met people and you really had like a common bond with them?
Maybe been in the same situation. they're in right now somehow.
Yeah.
Like I know my dad's not physically he's not in good shape. He has like a failed liver, and a recent seller I was talking to recently, her husband passed away from cancer. So I could kind of relate to her, like not only her husband, her dad too. Her dad passed away, and then like not long after that, her husband came down with cancer and passed away. So I could kind of relate to her. I know what it's like to care for somebody who's like dying, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did you give her a hug?
At the end, yeah, before I left.
Yeah. No joke. I'm serious.
Like
I have to put the hug close. It's like my part. I'm giving my whole business partner the hug close.
I should have did that. Yeah.
No, seriously. Now I'm not.
We were kind of walking around the house, like looking at stuff at the time. I don't know, maybe
Yeah.
it didn't cross my mind, but I should have.
Savina's like, I'm not doing the hug close. I knew you'd be resistant to it. Savina's like, I'm not hugging random strangers. Like, okay, you can draw your line, Sabina. You don't have to do everything. I'm just giving a suggestion. If someone's telling you about cancer and all that, like, it is not like against the rules to say, hey, you know what, come here, and like give them a hug. Like my partner did it all the time, and it worked like magic. And it wasn't a ploy. He just like, he was feeling it, right? He was like, he genuinely cared about them, and what they were saying was very sad to him, and he was very empathetic. And it just really shows a lot. So, I mean, I personally had to learn that from him, because I was like Sabina a little bit like, not just hugging people, but I hug more now. And you won't get it from me every time. I'm like 50-50 if it's an emotional situation that I might break a hug out, but never as a tactic, always just as a cool, nice thing to do. And it does end up building rapport, and it does end up put you in a good spot, because they're like, just like this person, right? This person's like very empathetic, nice person. Man, Delonte lost a deal that he had locked up last week because a guy came in and helped them cut the water off and spent like 30 minutes with the owner. He came in to look at the house before us, and the owner was in there for some random reason because they heard the water was leaking. Him and that guy spent a half hour, 40 minutes, like finding the water valve to turn the water off. And he said, yeah, your offer was highest, but this other guy, I would feel really bad not selling it to him because he helped me turn the water off. And I was like, shit. Like, there you go. There's your building rapport. Is that like rapport at its best? His offer was $4K less. I got the agent. The agent's flipping out because the agent told me how to win. The agent's writing my side, so the agent's getting a commission from both sides if I do it, but not if the other guy does it, right? And literally, the agent's like, I cannot believe they took an offer for $4K less. Your offer's stronger, it's higher. And he's like, the guy's just like, he would feel too bad not selling it to him. Like, he just met him today. I was saying, I'm like, what? Come on, man. But then I was like, oh, I totally understand. I get it. Right? The guy had an opportunity to meet the owner and build rapport with him, and that went a really long way. The guy was just generally being nice. He wasn't trying to hustle him. He just was like, oh, let me help you find the water. And he spent like a half hour doing that. And the guy's like, I'm going to sell him the house because of that. Isn't that crazy? I mean, it doesn't make a lot of logical sense, but it was a nice thing for the seller. Seller's like, we're selling for $80,000 or $76,000. What's the difference? Right? I just like this person. Get it. He doesn't know me. So anyhow, that is, there's a lot of power in that. And if you decide you want to throw a hug in there, it's always advised and I approve. But no hugs are fine too. You don't have to hug everyone. Some people aren't huggable.
Be like, this guy hugs me in every room, man.
Yeah. Oh my God. Is this the room that you used to be? Oh, this was your room when you were a kid? Come here, give me a hug. What? This is the kitchen your mom used to cook in? Give me a hug. So like, oh, the guy will think, I don't know about that Mike Green. I think he was making a move on me. a lot of hugs going on. All right.
Mike, do you have any advice on storytelling? I'm not a very good storyteller. I think I just need to practice more.
Well, storytelling. So
I know it's a powerful way to like kind of make your point.
It's a very powerful way, and obviously Googling it and learning more about it. But just the basics of storytelling is to bring emotion into it. A part of why you probably say you're not a good storyteller is that you're a little analytical. So you probably would like just say, "Hey, the story was at 10 o'clock this time. I did this, this, and this." Right? Where the really good of storytelling is when you can connect to emotions. I realized lately I don't even understand or know a lot of emotional words. Right? I am very strategic, very, analytical too. So I will give you like factual stuff. But when the best stories come is when they actually come from like the heart, and they come from how you were feeling, and you're a little bit vulnerable in there. Like when I lost my dad, I mean, it's like, I felt like it was the end of the world. And, and I was feeling this emotion, which I can't even tell you now because I need to actually just realize the other day, and I've been copywriting, and I realized I don't actually know emotional words. As a man, I don't think we've been taught words of emotion. So we don't actually understand how, like, Tony Robbins talks about this. He says there's about 300 words to identify your emotions, and most men know like 8. Like, we're just like super underdeveloped in that area apparently, because we're not taught to, like, our parents don't. My dad would punch him in my arm if I said something emotional, right? And be like, just stop being a little, FAG. And I'm like, okay. And that's what he would say. And I was like, that's how we grew up. It was like, you got to be tough. He's trying to, like, prepare me for the world. But at the end of the day, like, we need to learn to speak our emotions. So storytelling is a lot about just being super authentic and just like, how'd you really feel? And like, yeah, absolutely. It felt like this, and telling the tone, and then anchoring it, having a turn in it. Right. So I always come up with 1 or 2 stories. When I used to sell floors, I had a story of like how I bought this. I had a rental at the time, and I would tell the story of, like, they'd be like, well, you think I should get this cheaper floor or this little more expensive floor? And I'd be like, you know what? I always used to go for the cheapest one, but, and I make the same profit on either. So it doesn't matter to me which one you buy. But I will tell you this story really quick, and I think it might be relevant to you. About 6 months ago, one of my rentals, I had to get a new washer and dryer in there. And I bought this washer and dryer from this used appliance store, and it lasts for a month, and it all broke, and I had to replace it again. And the difference, I only saved about $300 buying a used one. And I realized if I'd have spent a few hundred more bucks and it would have lasted for 5 to 7 years versus 3 months, would I actually be spending more money, or would it have been a way better investment? Now, this floor right here has a 20-year warranty versus the other one has a 10-year warranty. So if it costs only 20% more, but you're going to get, 2 times the value to 100% more of the value. So really, it seems like it'd be a good investment to me. Right. That's telling a good story, right? You're telling the story about how, and then I felt like a complete fool, and then you have to say, like, I felt like a complete fool when the washer, and it did actually, that's a real story, by the way. Now, I had crazy tenants that were washing like 30 loads of clothes a day because they had like 7 kids, and they like literally blew that used one up quickly. Like, I bought it from some like scratch and dent place for like 150 each. And yeah, they didn't make it. I had to go get them a new one. The new one that ended up lasting for a while, but the used ones did not make it. They just ate those things like Oreo cookies. So, tell a story, but be heartfelt, be authentic, and maybe identify a couple stories before you go in for like scenarios that you run into. I often have a probate scenario, like I just told you, but my father passed away. I had to deal with, selling his house. Me and my brother, I use like me and my brother. I remember us like kind of bickering over the money a little bit. It was a little bit stressful, like, I don't know, when you have all that happening, it's just weird. Sometimes the dynamic between 2 people that are close sometimes gets weird around money. And I remember I had his feelings, and so I understand what you're going through. Right. I understand. So you could say anything like that, but you're right. Just create a story for each thing that comes up quite often. So that's storytelling. I think that's pretty much the breakdown, and obviously just do it. If you're not telling a lot of stories now, well, guess what? Here's how you get better at them. Start doing it. Like, you could tell a sucky story. A sucky story is way more powerful than no story at all. There's really no such thing as a story that doesn't actually make, your conversation better, because they still recognize it as you trying to connect and you being, someone sharing, right? Even if it's very, just not that great of a story. Make sense?
Yep.
Mike, you actually had some good strategic questions, and I would love to add some of them there, but you must be a reason you asked. That's one. What's important to you? How will you decide? Are a couple of strategic questions, but Mike actually had a couple good ones too. So if you want to share any, we talked about there must be a reason you asked.
Yep.
What's important to you is really big, because it's always like, Mike, I know obviously you called me out here to buy your house. I'm going to make you an offer, and as we talked about, it'll be higher than most other guys like me, and that way you're getting the most money, because I know that's important to you. But other than getting the most money, what's truly important to you, right? Because then you're going to find out some stuff you never thought. I mean, if they'll tell you, you might have to dig deeper. So, and then Mike, you had some stuff that you came in. Does anybody have some feedback on some strategic questions that they think would be awesome to ask?
So if they ask like unreasonable high price for their house, what would be the best question to ask? Like, how did you arrive to this number? Or
Yeah, if you want to, or
Mhm.
not, don't care really. I kind of like, I mean, the next level of it is I used to say, oh, okay, how'd you come up with that number? You know, what did you use to come up with that number? And that really is a little bit combative if you think about it. It's like, you know, you're basically saying they're wrong.
Yeah, I have about 5 voicemails that people saying, okay, this is the address, this is the price I want. Don't bother calling me if you can't offer this price. So I was wondering if it worth to return the calls at all.
Yeah, it's always where you always return the calls, but you know, are some of them going to be actually crazy like they sounded on the voicemail? Sure, and some won't be. That's the thing. So you're going to return the calls, and you're going to. Here's the thing I want you all to learn and know is we ignore what people's request. Right? When people say, "Don't call me if you're not going to give me this number," it's like, yeah, I didn't hear any of that. All I heard is I have a house to sell, so call me because the number I don't want to hear about that. I mean, it's just like, hey, man, I seen you left me a message about selling your house. I was giving you a call back. And they're like, well, I said, don't call me if you don't have this number. Well, like, I don't know what number I can pay. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about the house and we can figure that out.
And then follow the script, right?
Yeah. I mean, if they're like, well, are you going to pay me this number? I'm like, well, I mean, would you want to do business with someone that would just offer you a number without even seeing the property or even getting any information on the property at all? Sounds like that wouldn't be a very credible person, would it? Now, Sabina, you know, you sound very passionate about that number. Man, there must be a reason that you feel that way, right? And I promise you, there's always, when people call all crazy acting, there's always a story behind it. I promise that. There's always some reason they get pumped up like that. It just is. There's somebody's done something to them that pissed them off. Your job's to figure that out. So if you did nothing other than that, was you got good at calling people and figuring out what their pain was, then yes, it would be worth calling these people back. Even if you found out their pain was they owe too much on the property and they're tired of people making them offers that are less than what they owe. It's fine, right? You know, that's a power to be able to get in there and figure out what's going on. Because when you can figure out what's going on, then you can start being a transaction, you could be able to do transactions at a higher level because you'll be able to put transactions together. So yeah, I would call them back, and I wouldn't worry about what they say. And you know, that was what my coach told me almost 10 years ago when I wasn't calling people back because they were saying stuff like that. Like, I want 250K. If you don't give me 250K, don't call me back. And I'd look at the numbers real quick and be like, it's worth 100. Why? What? I'm not calling them. And so yeah, now you know, some of those people needed 250K. Now not all of them though. Still going to have the conversation because what you don't want to do, again, you don't want to think about what they're saying. You don't want to attach to what they're saying. You never want to correct someone, essentially. So, like, I feel like when there's like, I want 200, don't call me back. You're kind of correcting if you call them and say that ain't worth 200, or you don't call them is like you just automatically giving up. So it's kind of like you're correcting them also. Either way, think about both outcomes. They're bad. So the only other viable action to take is call them up and say, hey man, I seen you left me a message. Like, let's talk about your property a little bit, you know? And if they're like, well, how much are you going to offer me? And they say any of that, say, I haven't seen the property and you haven't really given me any information on it yet. Why don't we start with giving a little bit of information and we'll go from there. How much do you offer for these? Again, like I said, I don't know. I know nothing about your property. So right, just be sensible. Like, that's sensible, right? I don't know anything about your property. I don't mind breaking rapport when people are being crazy, by the way. So there you go. That actually is one thing I guess it's good to talk about. If people are being really combative and a little over the top, I don't mind breaking rapport a little bit and say, hey, listen, man, I don't know anything about your property. I totally getting where you're coming from. I'm assuming you're getting a bunch of calls or a bunch of low offers. How about that? There's a good one. Oh, like if he says, well, what are you going to offer, Sabina? I said, don't call me if you don't give me $250,000. What are you going to offer me? Say, well, I haven't seen your property, but it sounds like you're getting a lot of like pretty ridiculously low offers. And what do you think he's going to say? Yep, I am. He's not going to be like, no, I just decided to sell my house and you were the first person I called, Sabina, so I decided to act crazy. right? Who's doing that, right? There's a story behind this. No one's just picking your postcard up and like, oh, I'll call her and then let me make sure she knows though. I want to. Nobody's that certain. Like nobody's that certain. They get that certain when they're tired of other people running them in circles and wearing them out. But so your job is not go into this psychology too much. Just go in and do your thing and do it blindly. One of my best stories about an acquisitions guy is my friend Dave. He smoked weed when he came to work for me, and he got busted selling weed. And then he has like a 4-year finance degree, and actually almost got kicked out of college for it because he was selling weed to get through college. And so he had to get because he got in some trouble. He had to stop smoking weed. He had to clean up. And he's like, I want a job, Mike. I want to work for you. And I was like, oh God. He's like, I don't want to hire somebody who smokes marijuana because they're usually kind of lazy a little bit, and he wasn't though, because he stopped and he ended up being great. He's doing this now. And 4 years later, he was my acquisitions guy for 4 years, but we started him off cold calling, and he would get on the phone, and I don't know if it was from the drugs or what it was from, but people would talk some crazy stuff to him, and he would just be like, so does that mean you want to sell the house? And because I don't think he got it. And they're like, no, I'm telling you to go kill yourself. He's like, okay, but do you have a house to sell or do you not have a house to sell? And it was just like, and he was genuine. I didn't even teach him this stuff. He just was confused. Why is someone telling me to kill myself? I'm like, he had no understanding of he was so not worried about what they were saying. He just was following the script. And the script, I was like, just ask this. And he just followed it. He had really great results because of it, because he was really awful on the phone, but he never gave up. So a lot of this is we can't get in our own heads. We can't start trying to figure things out. We just need to get on and have a conversation. The other day, this lady in Pittsburgh, I called her, and I forgot to ask her the property address. I got so little information from her, but I built a rapport with her, and the conversation went really well. But if I'd have recorded it, you guys would be like, we never asked her how many beds and baths it was, or what the neighborhood was like. I didn't really ask her anything. Matter of fact, I didn't even ask her the address. I had to text her later and say, hey, do you mind if I get the address? I kind of forgot one important thing, the address. She laughed and said, oh, okay, here it is. Right. And I was like, crap, I forgot to get the address. I'm ready to run this whole thing down. You have an address, because the address is so meaningless, right? I mean, you can always text, you can always call back and get that information. So no, it's not about, being a little order taker. It's about building rapport, getting on the phone, having a conversation, and finding out what people's pain are. When you can do that, we can do that through strategic questions. So, let's talk about strategic questions, and you can also make a strategic statement. Oh, here's a good strategic statement. Sounds like you fill the blank in. How about that? Give me some scenarios of what we could say it sounds like.
Sounds like you're not ready to sell it yet.
Perfect. All right, what else? Yeah, let's do a little. Right, what else?
Sounds like you get lots of postcards.
Is that someone calling saying take me off the list? Okay. And also, what was mine? Mine was sounds like you have been getting a lot of low offers. That's a good one. I think that one's that's a really great one. If anyone gives you any shit about money, sounds like you've been getting a lot of low offers. So, oh, wow, that's interesting. Wow, it sounds like you've been getting a lot of low offers. Dude, they're going to go crazy if they're getting low offers. They're going to be like, oh my God, you don't even know. This person did this, this person did that. And you're like, oh man, that's crazy. Wow. Right. And now you can get into well, okay, got it. And where were you hoping to be? And then how far off were they from you? Right. Okay. Wow. It's a big difference. Oh, so you were that much more. Let me ask you, if everyone's telling you the similar number, they're all really low. Is there any chance that maybe their number is actually what the market is? Oh, well, no, well, and then why not, right? Well, why not? What makes you believe not? And oh, well, this, and this, right? And so you're having a conversation, right? It can lead into some deep stuff, and you might end up just consulting them and giving them some advice, and that's it. But that's how you run a lead. That's how you run a lead. You get deep down into the emotions and what's going on. You use these same, the sounds like is super important, right? So it sounds like, Ray, you're just waiting. It sounds like, Ray, you'd probably end up keeping this property if you didn't get a really high offer. Ray, it sounds like you are just looking to get retail for the property and save the realtor's commission, right? Because that basically things are selling fixed up. Your house is selling for about 200 fixed up, but you haven't fixed it up and you're trying to get 200 for it. Sounds like you're really just trying to save the realtor's commission. Is that why you called? Was that what you were hoping for? Oh yeah, we don't want to pay that, sure. But is there, it sounds like you would just keep this property if you couldn't get a number you were happy with. There you go. There's a good one. What are some other good sounds like? I mean, there's always something. Oh, here's a good one. When they're like, Sabina, so we got your offer. That was a good presentation. Everything you showed us looked really like we agree with it. We just need to take a couple days and think it over. What are you hitting with? It sounds like what?
Sounds like you're not ready to make a decision yet.
Okay. What else? It's a good one.
Sounds like you don't like my numbers.
Yes. Oh, it sounds like that you guys aren't happy with my offer,
Mhm.
or you don't like my numbers, right? Sounds like, is that the case? Right? Get them to say, well, we were hoping for a little more. So you know what the lady said to me today? I was like 30K, and she's like, that should work. I think we could do 30. That was the low end of what I was hoping for. And then she says, let me talk to my sister. And I was like, it sounds like you might not be 100% certain on my number. Is that the case? And she's like, well, then she started talking about her sister and the 40,000. So she might have been able to go convince her sister at 30. But I mean, once I knew about it, now I have to try to take that out of the equation. But I'm going to write that down. It sounds like you might not. You. That's a good one, actually. Sounds like you might not be certain with my number. Anytime they don't accept your number, what are you going to say? When they're like, okay, Sabina, what would you like to do? Yeah, we do our presentation. Like, okay, what would you like to know? Well, we're going to go think about it. We're going to go do this. We don't make these kind of decisions tonight. Remember, you've already got them to say they will make the decision. So we don't have to say, hey, you made a promise to make the decision, but we can be like, it sounds like you're not certain with my number. Might not be certain with my number. Might not be sure of my number. I don't know, whatever you want to say. Anything like that. What is it? It's an invitation to talk about the money, because that's the key. We got to talk about money. So cool. I got those down. I'll share those with you. I think they're good ones. So we're not here all night. We only got a couple more. We're almost done. Future pacing. Anybody ever heard of this one? Cool. It's basically we take people into the future. Imagine what it would be like when this house is off your plate. You and your family are in Florida, enjoying Disney World. I know you guys are moving to Orlando. You said you're getting season tickets. That sounds like a lot of fun. But I want you to imagine what it'd be like if we can strike a deal today and get this done. We're like, I don't know, Mike. I don't know if I want to take the house. And I say, I get where you're coming from. You want to just think this over. You want to make sure you're making a good decision. But isn't it the most important thing, getting your family to Orlando and getting down there? And it's a few $1,000 really worth the headache of, or the uncertainty of that not happening? I want you to imagine when you're in 3 months from now, when you're sitting in Florida and you're going to Orlando, you guys are at Disney every day, having fun. The weather's better. Your arthritis feels better. And you get to do all the fun stuff you told me you were going to do in Orlando. Will you really care about a couple $1,000? Will you be sitting back saying, man, I wish I would have got a couple more estimates. I could have got maybe an extra 1,000 or two if I'd have shot Mike around. You won't be. And they're going to be like, nope. I'm not going to care nothing about that. Yeah, man. So let's do this so you can get to Florida. So that's the imagine when. Imagine when this is done. Oh, man, imagine when you're done with all that. That'll be great, wouldn't it? So if they're like, oh, I've been stuck in here going through all this paperwork and all this stuff, and we come to the house every weekend. It's like, oh man, that's tough, man. I can imagine you're probably working a tough day, and you got to come at the end of the tough day and really dig through this stuff. I'm sure it's very emotional, a lot of memories here. Imagine when you sell me your house, I take care of all this for you, and this is all done. You don't have to worry about it anymore. It seems like that would be a big weight off your shoulder. So we can use the imagine when. So, and then it's when we're done, you can call and thank me. That's imagine when. Imagine when we're done, or imagine when we're done doing all this, I'll take care of everything for you. And I just want you to think about, like, a month from now, you're calling and thanking me, and this is all done. You don't have to deal with this anymore. Imagine that would be a pretty awesome moment, won't it? Right? Because people are pretty emotional. This might sound a little hokey, but if this will get people talking about emotions. When I buy your house, I like anytime I can interject when they're like, well, how does this process work? Well, great. When I buy your house, one of the first things I'll do is, so you might say, well, here's the way it works. I'm going to do this, this, and this. And then when I buy your house, the day that I buy your house, I'm going to take and give you a check, and you take that check to the bank and cash it, and it'll be for everything. And so you might do that, right? And then, and also this is a good one too for future pacing. Once you don't have to deal with X anymore, right? How about they're like, well, I really love fishing, but I haven't been fishing a month because I've been dealing with all this crap and this probate thing, and I have to cut the grass. And I was like, dude, imagine what it's going to be like once you don't have to deal with cutting the grass and hauling trash out of the house anymore. You can get back to fishing, right? Imagine when you don't have to deal with, the crap anymore, and now you can get back to fishing and get back to what you love. You see why it's important to know these things about people and be able to help them? We can start doing what's called future pacing. Anyone ever have any examples of when they've ever done that, even if they didn't know they were doing it, or you just were dreaming or daydreaming about something? Imagine when Sabina is a big time house flipper and making tons of money, right? And then she's our hard money lender at 19 and 9, she says. We've already discerned the price. Like, that'd be awesome. Like, yeah, what do we dream about, right? What are they dreaming about? What are they hoping for? If you really had to put yourself in their shoes, like, what are some of the things they sit up at night, laying in bed, looking at the ceiling, thinking about they would really like to have happen? If you can figure that out with them, because sometimes they don't always know, if you can get that from them or figure it out with them, then you're going to have really great success, like making that connection with people. You don't have to, I'm giving you a lot of stuff. And remember, you don't have to do all these things. You only have to do one or two of them. So if anything here connects with you, start implementing it, right? The active listening, if you just did that, it's going to step your game up big time. And then over time, you're going to keep implementing as many of these things as possible. You imagine if I went in and used all these techniques in one appointment, it would sound like a complete lunatic, right? It would be very odd and very weird. I use some of them. They're like, it's like weapons I have. And I'm just like, oh, this one might work really well right here, right? And I don't always remember some too. Sometimes I have the perfect situation for it. And I'm like, crap, I forgot to do that. Like the sister, like Gerhard said earlier, why don't you just get the sister involved? Well, there's always you have a family member who's the decision maker. I was just doing this off the fly. Someone hit me up on Messenger and I just jumped on a phone call on Sunday at 12 o'clock. I didn't have a script with me because I don't make phone calls. So I didn't remember the script because I don't make phone calls. So I just went like just complete like rogue, but it's okay. I built rapport because you can go rogue if you're building rapport. So we'll jump into the next one. Oh crap! I think okay. Jump to the next one. Anchoring. Anchoring is another NLP technique. It's another really important thing. When you anchor with people, you just anchor with anything you want. You'll need to first anchor. If you want to wholesale the deal because you're like, I don't really want to buy something in the hood, right? Well, I think Sabina, you might have asked me this the other day, or I think it was you. It said you had a bigger house, a more expensive house. And you're like, I don't even know if I want to do something like that. Well, just go anchor it and be like, here's a low offer that you would go find the money with, right? And when they say no to it, well, there's your anchor, right? Now from the anchor, it's easy to spring into what you really want to do, which is wholesale it, right? You don't want to really buy it, but there's a number you would buy anything at, just so you know. Like you said, well, I don't think they'll take 250 if it's worth 700, but would you buy it at 250? Probably, right? You'd probably figure it all out at 250. So would I. Or you could just buy it and they'd be like, Mike, you want to partner? And I'm like, yeah, I'll partner on a 200K deal for sure. Like, yeah, we just got a great deal. The thing is, no one's ever going to say yes to that, but guess what it becomes? It becomes your anchoring point. And it gets super easy when you hit it with 250 to go, like, next thing you know, you're putting it under contract for 400 and you get an opportunity to try to sell it to someone. And in some, like your situation, Sabina, where you have a $700,000 house, you put it under contract for even 400 or 500, you might find a cash buyer that'll take it. I mean, there is cash buyers at that price point that will literally just come in and buy and live in it, especially depending on where it is. So we don't ever care about what we can't do. We just go work the deal. We figure it out. We put it under contract. And I have a guy right now. He's like, I have 2 lots I need to develop. And I'm just like, I'm working this lead. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know what to do with them. But if you're willing, I'll put it under contract and I'll see what I can do with the lots. I'll see if I get someone there. I don't know if I'm going to put it under contract yet because the lot thing is kind of a headache. But I'd really like to buy the house at the price and then forget the lots. But he's like got a big picture of what the lots are worth. Like, and I'm having a hard time getting around it. Someone made him a $200K offer for a $250,000 house because that's like a lot of lots. But I can't see how you can get the lots you can get to the other lots without tearing the house down. I think it just really is a bunch of lots. So I don't know. I'm trying to put myself in the deal and I'm not sure how I'm going to do it yet. So give them what they want, anchoring. Don't give them what they want. Oh, sorry. Don't give them what they want. So when we talk about long settlements, like Gloria the other day when she was negotiating, they were like, we want 2 weeks. And she almost agreed to it. And I was like, Gloria, you can't get this done in 2 weeks. You don't have the ability to settle. It's your first deal. How are you going to get it done in 2 weeks? She's like, I don't know. I was just going to figure it out. I was like, well, you don't even have enough time to figure it out in 2 weeks. So go back and tell them you want 45 days. And she went back and told them she wanted 45 days. What do you guys think they said? They said to her,
Agreed.
that's one option, but probably never happens. Nobody agrees to anything. What do you think?
And then they go for 30.
Yeah, they want
So
the 30.
you give them 45 because you want like 20.
Yeah, whatever. Exactly. Yeah. They gave her 30, which works, by the way. It was tight, but it works. She ended up selling it to me for $8,500. I'm giving her $8,500 assignment fee. So it's actually the first house I've bought from a student since I've been coaching. But, I was kind of like, I need a house in PG County, and it's a pretty big house. So I don't know that she easily could have wholesaled it. And it has the owner living in it, so she can't show it. So she has a couple hurdles with trying to sell this. So this became very logical to sell it to me. She don't have her money 100% right now. She has an owner living in it. So trying to sell show the property to a bunch of investors is pretty much not going to happen. And it's $190,000 purchase with like $70K in rehab. That works for me, but that don't work for a lot of people. I'm cool with it, but a lot of people aren't going to be cool with that. So anyhow, that's and I bought it because I figured, you know what, she paid money to be in the coaching program. Now she's made some of that money back and she's good. It's helpful to her. And also she can now tell her private investor who was kind of acting goofy, who was like, yeah, I'll get the money in 2 weeks and never showed up to the appointment. She can tell him like, I already gave that deal to someone else. You'll have to be on the next one. That goes a long way if you can do that with your private investor. Like, you're abundant. I don't need you. Yeah, I already did that with someone else, man. Sorry. I'll tell you what, man, get your stuff together and I'll do the next one with you. I would like to do that. But he was playing games with her. He's supposed to meet her at the house, didn't show up. And I'm like, Gloria, you can't have your deal worried about some dude that don't even show up to an appointment. He like kept calling, saying, I'll be there in 15 minutes. I'll be there in 30 minutes. And then like, we're sitting there forever and we're doing some other stuff. And I'm like, and then eventually he's like, I ain't coming. I'm like, who does that? That's not a guy you want lending you money. That is not someone you want lending you money because you don't want your deal depending on that dude. That's a fluffy guy. I don't think I've ever done that to anyone in my life. Like, seriously, I've never in my life been like, I'll be there in 10 minutes, I'll be there in 20 minutes more, 30 minutes more, and then like, I'm not coming. Holy crap. I can't even imagine what kind of person does that. So anyhow, anchoring, whatever it is, I don't totally believe in doing this with the price. The reason I don't go crazy on anchoring the price is because I do believe in presenting and being a very logical based, way of doing things. And when we do that logical based presentation, we can't just be like, all right, here's the numbers and here's our deal analyzer. And it shows we should offer 86. I'll give you 40. Right? I mean, yes, it's a good anchoring technique, but it's not conducive. So the anchoring's powerful, but I think what's more powerful is, showing people logically, taking them down the path and creating rapport and trust. When it comes to the price, it's very hard to anchor because most of the time you're already kind of anchoring. They're already like, I want 200 and you're trying to give them 120. So it doesn't make sense to hit them with 80. It just makes the difference of where you are and where they are even greater. So I always do. I might anchor with like saying, hey, I'll give you 80 when I know I could pay 85, but I'm not going to give them like 40 when I know I can pay 85. Does that make sense? There are two trains of thoughts on this. I will tell you that you're not going to rarely ever see me get like really big, crazy home run deals. But also I win a lot of the deals my competitors would not win when they're going around trying to be greedy. So I don't know. For me, it's no more of an abundant thing. If I can make 30 to 50K, I'm very happy to do so. I don't need to try to make 100 on one, especially with as competitive as the market is. Let's go to our last one, reframing. Anybody know what this is? Anybody heard about it? This is what you do when you're contractor. You get your contractor from Craigslist and you ask them to frame your basement. You end up reframing it all because he thought that 13 1/4 inch on center studs was the code. It's normal. I had to do that actually at Tanya's house. The guy was building a wall and he had all the studs wrong. And he's like, no, these are good. I'm telling you, they're all 16 on center. And I was like, well, they don't look 16 on center. And I pulled tape measure out. It was like, not one of them was 16 on center. He had like 4 different dimensions. He just was randomly putting studs in with no measurements. He had a 12 on center, a 13.5 on center. He didn't even randomly get lucky and get one that was like with the 16 in it. He had no 16 on centers. You know, I could tell because it was like a goofy looking wall. And we ended up firing that guy on the spot. And that was really nice about it. Everybody gave me praise about how I wasn't mean to him. But I felt really sorry for him. He was a nice guy, but he just was, he didn't know how to frame a wall and he wouldn't listen to me. I actually sat there for like 40 minutes trying to train him and show him this, he just wouldn't listen to me. And I would come back down. I was like, all right, frame it this way. And I come back down. And what did he do? He started framing it the same old way. I was like, who does that? He's like, no, we're just going to straighten it out when we get it up. I'm like, no, dude, I can't have you doing that. That's, I don't want you putting a wall up and then beating it over. That makes no sense. That's crazy talk. But that's not actually reframing. So let's get back to what it is. So reframing is you can take anything you hear and you can reframe it. So you can take something, a belief. The main reason we use this is we want to change someone's beliefs. Right. So what are we doing when we present to someone and we show them the comps and we show them we show them all our repair budget. We show them, right, what is that actually? What's that an example of? I want to see if anyone just get lucky and guess this.
Convincing them to accept our price.
And what are we doing when we're changing their belief? We're reframing their belief. So we're taking their belief that they currently have and that it's worth 200K and we're reframing it by walking them through and helping them reframe. Everything we do when we're in these appointments is changing people's beliefs. So when anybody asks me like, well, what do we do when a seller says this or they believe this? I'm like, okay, you get to work, right? That's your job. You have to reframe people's beliefs. It's very rare that people call and they're like, yeah, I just want exactly this number. And, you're like, wow, that's a great number. Most of the time they want too much or, they have a belief that's inaccurate because they're not in the real estate business. So if we really think about this, what is the likelihood of someone coming in and having the exact same beliefs as us? Like people don't understand our business. So if they don't understand our business, it's super unlikely that they're going to come in with the exact same beliefs. So with that being the case, then we want to make sure that we have the ability to reframe everything they're believing. So first we have to dig and figure out what their beliefs are, right? That's what we're doing. We're asking all these questions and we're being an active listener. What are we waiting to hear? Oh, they believe that. Okay. Oh no, they think that's how it works. Okay. Got it. Okay. These are their beliefs. Then we have to realize which of their beliefs are actually good beliefs, like accurate beliefs. And if they're accurate, then we give them a compliment and say, Sabina, it's really great you have that belief. I have the same belief. Right? Yeah, it's awesome. Most people don't know that. Like, thanks, man. It's cool. Right? So there we go. We give them a compliment. Anything that they believe that's accurate, we give them a compliment. We give them praise. We validate them. Anything that the beliefs don't make any sense, then we might not attack it right then, but at some point we're going to have to start reframing that belief. So the biggest belief, the reason I have like a multi-step process to reframe the belief of price is that's a hard one to reframe. So when you guys are like, well, how do you get them from 200 to 120? Yeah, you slowly do it, right? It is a process, and the process is the phone call, going to meet them, building rapport, and then presenting to them. And if you follow all the steps of that process, the 3x3 sequence, you will be able to reframe people's beliefs way more often than you ever thought, right? It's just going to be a thing. You'll be able to do that. If you don't follow that sequence, then reframing someone's really big belief of price is not going to be as easy. You're not going to get out there and be like, they don't sell for that much. I'll give you 50. Most people are just going out and saying, look, I'll give you 90. And they're like, well, what do you mean? We want a lot more. Well, look, it's just not worth that. That's how people try to reframe it. It's not worth 90. Like, things are only selling for like 200. They have like a quick conversation. They want someone to just take their really big belief and just change it on the spot. Now, that's pretty tough to do, right? Is to get someone to just change their belief, their very big belief, on the spot. So when you're trying to negotiate on the phone and you're trying to get someone to go from 200 to 120 on the phone, think about what you're doing. You're taking this huge belief they have and you're trying to get them to change it on the spot without any kind of effort on your part. Really think about it, it's us being lazy, right? We're not willing to put the work in to get what we want and to really help them and educate them. So that's why we follow the 3x3 process, because it's reframing a belief. Now, you can do that. You can tell a story to reframe a belief. You can say, you know what, my first house I bought, I was going around with the realtor and I was like, should we pay 200 for it? And she was like, you know what? No, you can't pay 200 because it's what we'll sell it for once you fix it up, and you got to put like 40K in it, and then you have settlement costs, and you got to pay your bank fees, you got to pay to cut the grass, you got to pay the taxes, right? And then you got to pay a realtor when you sell it on the back end. So you can't pay 200 for it. You really could probably only pay like 100. And I was like, 100? You mean I'm only going to pay 50 cents of what it's worth? They're like, well, it's not actually worth 200. So a realtor showed me like, oh wow, it's actually worth what like an investor would buy it for and be able to make a small profit. It was pretty crazy, Sabina, when I figured that out. And that's what we tell people. See how we tell a story to reframe the belief? We just didn't. I think everybody probably has that story of when we were new and we didn't know, right? I didn't always think you could buy something at a discount. I thought things were worth what they were worth. I didn't understand that at some point in my life. You could actually buy a house a lot cheaper. Oh, well, who knows? So sometimes we got to create a story and tell them. So that's one way we can reframe. But reframing is, it's really just taking the story, feeding it back to them. It's that active listening, right? You hear what they're saying and then you feed it back. So guys, give me a statement and I'll reframe it and send it back to you. Let's give me some statements you hear quite often and I'll reframe what you're saying. I'll at least try. I might not be able to get it right, but I'm pretty sure I might have a shot. Something that you're hearing a lot that you hate or is driving you kind of crazy, except for the fact that I don't want, we already went over reframe the one with the money. Nobody has nothing?
Some of them are telling very often, I'm not sure if we need to reframe it or not, that, oh, I'm getting a lot of postcards from the scammers as you are. So,
What does that mean? Do you start getting postcards from scammers?
as you are.
Oh, and you're a scammer? Well, that's not a lead, right? That's just somebody complaining.
But if they are calling, I'm thinking, okay, if something made them to call me, so maybe they want me to convince them that I'm not a scammer and maybe they're still motivated to sell.
Absolutely. So here's a great example of what you would say if somebody said that. I'll give you an example. Oh, wow. Wow, that must be really frustrating. I can't imagine. I get those kind of crazy calls all the time. They're completely piss me off. So, I'm so sorry that you're getting those cards. And obviously, I'm glad you called me. It sounds like you have a house to sell. You see what we did? You don't have to ask them. Yeah, we reframed it to like, I totally get what you're saying. And it sounds like you have a house to sell, right? What we might do is we might get her to agree because we reframed it. So it sounds like, so you heard what everything I said, we're empathizing with them, right? And then we're saying, oh, it sounds like you have a house to sell though, but you just want to make sure you're selling it to someone that's ethical. Yep. Or no, I don't have a house to sell. Stop sending me these letters. Oh, my bad. What do you have to lose if you say that? Right? We can make statements. I love making statements because people either agree with you and then you're like hit it hard, or they'll disagree with you and tell you everything you need to know. So you see how incorrect statements are actually pretty powerful. They're really you could be very manipulative with them because people, what they do when you make an incorrect statement, people will qualify. If you tell someone like, hey man, it seems like you definitely aren't good with the women. What do you mean? I'm good with the women? Oh, okay. I was just fucking getting that from you. They start qualifying yourself, right? Like, you see how defensive Ray got when we talked about his hair breaking up with him, his hair leaving him just randomly one time, middle of the night. Everything was good, right? You didn't know things were not going well. He just woke up and the hair just left. Sabina, you don't. It's an inside joke. Sabina wasn't here. She's like, "What are you talking about?" Ray said something about like I asked him to talk about maybe an emotional situation when someone left him, and he's like, "My hair left me," or something, and it was pretty funny. And so it was like I'm just so Sabina knows we're not like I'm not being mean and picking on Ray. It's actually Ray's joke that we're talking about. We're coming back to. He said his hair left him randomly, but. So anybody else, give me something else that comes up and I'll show you how we can just keep reframing it because we're reframing it to what we want it to be. And if we're wrong, who cares? Right? If we're wrong, who cares? Like, let's reframe some stuff. And reframing is very powerful because you can reframe your whole life. You can look at things that you see negatively and you can reframe them into something positive. If Gerhard's like, I've been working so hard to get a deal and I can't, these stupid letters aren't working well. Like, dude, Gerhard, man, I get where you're coming from, man. It sounds like, or I might even say, oh, wow, really? That's exciting. And Gerhard's gonna be like, what? What do you mean? I'm complaining. That's so exciting. It sounds like you're getting really close, man. You're almost there. Like, dude, that's awesome, man. Congratulations. He's like, no, I was complaining, actually. You see, that's a reframe, though. And imagine if we use that reframe. Tony Robbins talks about reframing as one of the most powerful NLP techniques ever for us to change our own lives and to be able to, because we can reframe anything we look at in this world, right? I mean, think about it. We can take and look at something positively or we can look at it negatively. So, guys, give me some other stuff. So, because I think this will be what we end with. And there's some really good stuff that you like. And what about some of your struggles with your contractors, Ray? Hit me with some bullshit.
I mean, the common is, can't get it. Some variation of that can't get it done for that number. Like when you give them the budget and they'll look over it and we'll go over the kitchen line item and it's X hundreds of dollars for the kitchen to hang the cabinets and whatever they're looking at, they're like I can't get it done for that number.
Mm-hmm. No, you can't get it done for that number. I totally get that, Ray. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. You know what I'm hearing? It sounds like you have a really high standard of the work you do, and you really take a lot of pride. I would love to work with you. If you were me and you knew you had to keep a budget, is there any way that we could find a common ground where we could work together? It might be a no, but it might, but hey, was that like a pretty nice way of saying, hey, let's work on this?
Yeah.
Right. And you see how I reframed him complaining about the number to his high quality standard and I gave him validation, like how awesome he is. It's because he must be awesome, right? I mean, the reality is I tell you when me and you were talking, it's probably because they suck and they're inefficient, but I may need to reframe that in my own head. And I mean, I need to get a little more positive about it. What else do we got? You got anything else, Ray? Like, how about your realtor stuff where they were like fighting you on that or anything? Because I mean, I think that, honestly, I'm teaching you guys this technique, but as your coach, I haven't been using it. And I'm glad we're talking about it because I'm going to make sure I use it when I'm speaking with you and help you use it because anytime people give a shit, I'm always very logical about my response. Like, well, that doesn't make sense and this and that. Instead, I should be reframing it. And reframing requires you to get into their shoes a little bit, right? To put yourself in their shoes and understand their world. And that's why reframing it's a technique that you can learn, but it's also a great practice for life because what it's doing is we naturally see things one way. And if we could figure out how to look at it a different way, now we become very open. Like we just see things in multiple different things. It's great leadership skill. It's a really good way to run your business. So I'm not perfect at it, obviously, because when you call me and say a contractor said that's not reasonable, what's the first thing I say? I'm like, oh God, that's, they all say that. But I should be reframing to you and you should be reframing to them. So let's all remember that and let's work on it. What else? So what else did you have with your agent or someone else?
They were given pushback on when we kept asking them to do highest and best. I don't want to keep doing that. Once is fine, maybe twice, but we start running the risk of pissing buyers off or pissing agents off.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say, Ray, is that you obviously don't want to piss people off, and that's awesome, man. I'm glad. It's one of the reasons we really like working with you is that you care about the other people and you want to make sure you keep a good reputation, and you definitely have that. Is there any way we could find that we could go back and try to get a little bit more? Because my sense of them is there's a little bit more there, and obviously I want you to find a way not to piss anyone off because I know how important that is to you. It's important to me too. But also at the same time, I know you really want to represent me because I could tell you have you have high standards, right? And with those high standards, I know that you want to get me the most money, right? And you want to represent your client to the fullest, correct? I feel like I should have gave you that answer instead. So we just now all need to remember reframing. I'm giving you guys the worst answers, apparently. I mean, the answers I'm giving you are accurate, but like I feel like that's a way better answer.
Yeah.
And if they can't get with you on that answer, then you know that it's them, not you, right? At that point. If
I
that's
thought the one for the contractors was good. I thought that was actually really good because it kind of puts it back on them, and it's like, hey, even if you do agree to some number that might be a little bit higher than the budget that you gave them, you at least kind of reframed it, and you kind of put the standard out there that they think those numbers are low because they're going to deliver a primo product.
Yeah.
So that was kind of planted in there too.
You might actually just planted a seed for them. Like you told them, if you tell people how awesome they are, there's a good chance they'll be awesome.
They'll live up to it.
Yep. Yeah, there's a study that they did that shows that that's the case. When you tell kids they're smart, they actually test better.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? Like you tell them they're stupid or like, you don't tell them anything and they actually test lower. But if you tell them how smart they are, they took two groups of kids of equal intelligence, and one group of kids, they constantly told them how smart they were. They even put them in an advanced class, said, oh, you're the smart kids, we're going to put you in an advanced class. But they weren't any smarter than the other kids. They all tested the same. And after 6 months, the kids that went to the smart class tested way higher. They got the same curriculum. They got taught the same lessons. But because they were told they were smart, they actually became smarter. They lived up to it, like you said, right? And that's a big thing. They'll live up to what you tell them. So, yeah, we can. So if that's what we need to figure out when people are getting resistant to simple ideas, we almost have to just kind of put ourselves in their shoes, reframe it, and then say, like, you know what? I know that you do this, and I want you to work on that with us. But hey, let's like just tell them how awesome they are. Dude, you're doing an awesome job. I'm very proud of how many times you went back. I know that I know how passionate you are about delivering great results for me, and I can see you've worked really hard on that. But that being said, is there a way that we could not piss them off and keep them on board and maybe see if we can get the most out of these people? Since we got so many offers, make sure we're not leaving anything on the table. So you see that's the nice way of answering. It is probably the way I actually answer in real life, depending on who it is, right? Like I'm gonna have a little shorter answer probably if depending on who it is. Sabina or Gerhard, what have you encountered recently? Either one of you guys that's like been something you're hearing a lot that you just would like to have a good reframe for.
For my last guy, it's all the time. It's impossible to find stuff, impossible to do this way, impossible. I cannot do it. And then I'm always trying to get like second opinion on it, and it's completely different. Like even today, I talked to Dale and said, okay, how we can do this? You recommended on the report. My guy said that it's impossible to do it this way, and he was laughing like it's very like easiest thing to do. So it's like
Dale was laughing. You said
yeah,
Dale's like exactly. He's not even a contractor, and he knows how to do it. He's just a home inspector. It's like what?
Yeah, he's investor also. He said that he's doing it like for 30 years, so maybe that's why he was aware. Yeah, but I mean, it's an all-time battle with this contractor. I mean, I'm okay with the end result. He's doing a good job. He's working I can say hard, but it's like constant battle because he can't find things. He
has a lot of he always says things are impossible. So I want the group to join in with me because this one's a little hard. I've struggled getting a good answer for this one. How do we reframe when someone says, oh, that's impossible? But common sense tells us that it's not, right? I mean, we know there's very little impossible when it comes to rehabbing a house, by the way.
or he makes it very complicated. I mean, he shows me his way, but it's very complicated.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and that's really what it comes down. How do we get him thinking? That's the key. Like, how do we change his belief, right? And that's what reframing is. We have to change his belief.
What if you said something like, listen, I understand this might be something that you're unfamiliar with, might be something that you honestly even haven't done before, but, we're definitely looking to, we appreciate what you've done thus far on the job for us. And having said that, we're always looking for people that can be problem solvers and grow and try new stuff with us. And kind of, I don't know if they say impossible to everything. I mean,
Like every small thing that
it's a lot of things.
The right way.
Is that also a red flag too? Like, is there sometimes, I was kind of wondering, Sabina saying this, is there sometimes like where you might not want to, maybe you reframe, but kind of the end reframe is to kind of, it doesn't sound like he's going to be around for the duration if everything's impossible. Like, do you want to keep coaching him through everything for the next 10 years of construction?
No, we already had that conversation, but she definitely wants to do it now because she'll get the practice, right? So she gets the opportunity to try with him. But also, I've had people who've been like him and I've converted them. However, you won't always convert them. It's much like a lead, right? You do the right things.
He just kind of talked out loud through it, and he said, hey, listen, I hear you saying this is impossible, but here was one or two ideas I thought that might work. Can you collaborate with me on this? I know you have more knowledge of the field. Let's collaborate together. Can we come up with a few more ideas and maybe get him or his guys talking towards it as they see Sabina take the lead and put the first potential solution out there?
Yeah, I like all your suggestions, by the way. I think they're all good so far. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm brainstorming in my own head, trying to come up with an idea how to handle it because it is a little tough.
Yeah, he's not that bad. Let's say when I just invited him to give me the estimate, I told him that what Mike suggested to like stay in the cabinet, and he was like, "Oh my God, kitchen and bath selling the house, and now I will do it for you, but the result will not be good. I don't guarantee anything." And now he doesn't hide how he love how the kitchen turned out to be. He just like, oh my God, like I'm learning every day. It looks so nice. He admits it now. So it's something.
That's the part of the reframe.
That's the reframe. There's your story.
Yeah. He's teachable, I think. So that's why I'm thinking maybe the hope.
I think that I have a couple good ones. I would say that I would start with some kind of compliment because he seems really like when people are really like certain like that, they're usually a little insecure. So they don't go well with like compliments, and I mean, they don't go well when you're combative or you challenge them. They tend to get real like a little bit babies, like little babies. They're not very open communicators. So I would probably start with something like, oh, okay, so you're saying putting the door, fixing the door trim at the bottom's impossible. Yeah, I mean, I can see why you would think that too. It makes sense. And I don't really know a lot about it. I know that you're probably one of the smarter guys I've seen. I've seen your work's really good. And you're a great leader. You do a lot of awesome stuff with your people. I don't know if it is possible, but I know that like if anyone could figure it out, it would be you. Is there any way we could me and you could brainstorm a couple ideas with this and see if we can come up with something that wouldn't require replacing the door? Because I really do need to stay on budget because there's no money outside of there's really no money for this. So I'd love to find a cheaper way to do it. What do you think? Is there any way what ideas if you had to come up with one? And then, so I think like that maybe, and that's like not the best, but it's pretty good. Like, right. It's a backdoor way around saying like, first, you see how we complimented him though? That's really important for someone like him. Because I think if you compliment someone like him and you empower him, if you put him in the smart class, the advanced class, and tell him how awesome he is, I have a feeling he would actually live up to it. Because like you said, he's got talent. He just isn't living up to it. Yeah. It's good, right?
I was going to say, what if I know you're huge on using like YouTube videos. What if, if Sabine, if you hear him say, or if there's something right now that he's telling you that's impossible, or there's something that you reviewed with him today and he said it's tough or I've never done it before, what if you look up tonight and find one or two good YouTube videos that show how it's done? And I know Mike's been huge at doing this with his guys. He's used YouTube to turn his average contractors into rock stars. So if you went in on your phone or on a tablet, said, hey, I know you said this is impossible or this is challenging. Here's how it's done. You know, like Mike said, put the compliment in there of everything they've done so far, and say, you know, here's what I had in mind. You know, this is something that we can do, right? It looks pretty easy. And maybe once he sees it, but like Mike said, it sounds like he's just limiting himself because you're asking him to do stuff that he hasn't done before. So
And
he's
not brave enough maybe to try new things.
yeah, and he might want to do it too. He might think that you could, you know, you're the potential for this and many future jobs and consistent work for him. So he might kind of not want to try anything new for fear of messing up and not delivering the best product for you.
And honestly, it could just be too that like and that's all real stuff, but then you also could be a little bit of that they just don't want to make things simple because it requires work, right? And then now if you just like make it this little simple thing, it's almost like just do it. And my guys will just do little simple things. They just throw it in and knock it out. So, but that's all part of like painting the vision. So it might be like, hey, listen, I'm really starting to buy houses, and you know, I see you being a big part of my future and us working together. Part of what we're going to run into quite often, we didn't run because you really didn't run into it much on this house, but imagine when he gets in an old house, is we're going to have to find ways to save things. And I know you haven't had to do that in the past, but I'll tell you, if you could figure this out with me, I could have a lot of opportunity for you. Is there any chance you'd be willing to work on when we run into some of these things that are pretty impossible, that we can find a way to make them not impossible so we can keep the budget good? Like, see, I think that's a really good, powerful conversation too. Because like you're just saying, like, you're not saying like, I need you to be a problem solver. Well, you know, let's say, well, let's like weed them in and say like, look, dude, here's why you want to be a problem solver. If you could be a problem solver, I really see a big future for us and us working together. But if not, then unfortunately, I'm probably going to be over budget, and I'm probably going to be out of business soon.
Yeah. Thank you, Ray and Mike. Yeah, it's something that I need to, work on and have this kind of conversation with him.
Yeah, I'm glad we had this. I'm glad we did the reframing. It's actually one of the more valuable things we've done because it made me realize that I'm not reframing enough when you guys say stuff to me. Right? I have to reframe it with you, and so that you can learn from me. I used to have an agent that was amazing at it. The guy, Tom, he wasn't the greatest agent, but one thing he was amazing at was when people would call angry, he would respond in the most pleasant ways. And it was awesome. And every time he did it, I was like, oh God, I'm really like the guy you want if you want someone to like pound someone out and like put someone in their place. That's me. He would like completely disarm them. And I loved it. And I'd hear it. I'd be like, oh my God, that's how like a gentleman would handle it, right? That's how someone with like a lot of class would handle it. Now the only issue was though, he only had one speed, and it was being a gentleman all the time. He never could get down to business. He could never negotiate. He would always, you know, he was too soft, honestly, so he couldn't get great results. But I think you can do both. You don't have to be one or the other. He just chose to have just one. He never really learned the other hardcore part. So I liked it if we reframe things. Mike, you missed one of the better parts. Check the end out, the reframing. So when you hear it, I think it's pretty good stuff. What's one thing before we hang up? This is the last thing. We're almost done. What's one thing that you hear a lot that you're struggling with, that either from your contractors, motivated sellers, just something that I could reframe for you? Because reframing is essentially taking stuff and then bringing it back.
Mm-hmm. Your price is too low.
Oh, your price is too low. Oh, that's not hard. Don't say, well, I completely understand where you're coming from, Mike. Obviously, I can tell you're looking to get the most money for your property, but really, is it more important just to know that you got a fair price?
Maybe. I need a certain minimum. So if I can't get that, then it's probably not worth selling the house.
Got it. And so
this is a real example. It just happened to me like 2 weeks ago.
Well, you said if you don't get a minimum, you wouldn't be able to sell the house. Tell me more about that.
Well, I need to have at least 150 in my pocket from selling the house, because I need 120 to have down payment to buy a new condo, and I need to have about 30,000 left over in the bank, so I can travel. I'm looking to retire after this year, so that money will help me with my retirement. I can travel a bit, not worry about money. I don't want to be stressed over money. That's exactly what she told me.
Makes a lot of sense. And what happens if the market gives you some feedback and tells you that 150 is not a possible number? Is plan B just stay in the house?
Yeah, just I can stay here for another year or two. It's not a big issue for me.
Okay.
I'm not desperate to sell.
Yeah, I got it. I get that from you. You don't seem desperate at all, obviously. But let me ask you this question, though, Michael. When a couple years goes by, what will be different in a few years than now?
My house would be worth more money, and my mortgage would be paid down a bit more. I don't know. It's hard to say for sure, but
Yeah,
like,
so you
like
don't know.
150 is not worth it, right? It's just
Yeah, not worth it.
not
We're
for me.
just, but you see how we're just digging and we just keep having a conversation around it. We're reframing their belief. So this one's very hard. This isn't a great example because this one is one that I don't recommend you try to reframe, because if they need 150, they need 150.
Yeah,
Right. One that I would try to
Yeah.
reframe is when they're like, I owe 50, I want 150 or 200, and I think it's worth 200, and you're reframing them to get them down to 150 from 200.
Right.
That's a good reframe because it's possible, but it's hard to reframe. What are you going to reframe someone out of their 30K they need to live? You really can't do that, right? And unfortunately, that's there's
Come
a
on, you know
law.
you can live off $500. Come on,
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I
ramen,
need
top
30.
ramen, man, for
Yeah,
morning, lunch, and dinner.
you have to tell them, I'll give you 10K and I'll teach you how to put it in Bitcoin and then double it. You can double it a couple of times. So you don't really want to reframe that, but we had some really good reframes before you came in. What is something that you're hearing from contractors that's frustrating you, or from sellers? But it has to be something that you know that they could be potentially, their belief could be changed. Like, what belief are you hearing from people?
I don't know. Lately, I haven't been talking to a lot of people. Honestly, just sellers.
How about contractors or sellers? Either one's fine, really.
Um, I talked to another seller. He wanted too much for his house.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted 435, and it needed like 160 worth of rehab. ARV was like 650 maybe. It's way too tight. Like, he bought it a year ago for 380. His intention was to convert it into a legal 3-unit. He already gutted it. It's already been gutted. He's got permits.
Mm-hmm.
But so he spent, maybe like 20 grand, not even.
So his belief is that he could buy a property, not finish it, and then make money, or break even.
Yeah, because he got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer recently, so he doesn't want to finish it. But he's like, he's like being all macho about, like, you know what? But if you don't want to pay me what I want, I'll just finish it. It's no big deal. I've done renovations my whole life.
Well, there you go. So he has a belief, and so your job is to get in and say, like, well, then obviously, Mike, what I'm hearing from you is it sounds like that you want to sell the property, you bought it, you started it, didn't finish it, and you're hoping that someone will buy it, and for what you have into it or more, so you can make a profit. But I actually had a similar situation, or I seen a similar situation, and I used to think that was the case too. You could do that, but I found out that when you don't finish a project, that often people, you end up taking a little bit of a loss if you're going to sell it. At that point, it's hard to get all your money back unless you finish the project. So it sounds like if you're really stuck on getting a certain number, that you might really need to finish this out, unless you're willing to take a little bit of a hit, and for the convenience of not having to deal with this, so you can get focused on your health and your family and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure he wants to rehab a house while he's dying. I mean, that makes tons of sense. Just stay in touch. You can buy it off his wife when he's gone. Come on. I mean, like, seriously. I mean,
yeah, I told him as I was walking out the door, like, hey, I got the lead through a wholesaler, so the wholesaler was there. The three of us were talking, and I said, if I'm rehabbing a house just a few blocks away, maybe we can get together, have lunch or have coffee someday. Just see how your rehab's going. You can come by my rehab, give me some ideas, and we can have coffee.
Yeah,
as a way to follow up with him, right? Because I know,
I have a feeling that his pain is going to get, like, it seems like it's at a level 5, and I have a feeling it's going to get to a higher level if, like, when he gets into his treatment and everything, he's not going to be able to do it. And so staying in touch with him would be a smart move, because like right now he's probably like just coming into the idea, I got to sell this and not finish it.
Yep.
But I have a feeling that there's going to come a point where it's going to be like, I just need this off my plate, and you'll probably be able to make a deal. I don't know how far off you were, but if you're pretty close, you might be able to make a deal. you're way off, then probably not.
I'm probably like 80K off.
Yeah, that might be a little too far then. So then don't stay in touch and don't have lunch. So you do lunch with someone else, unless you just want to hang out with them. I mean, that's totally up to you, but obviously don't do it for the deal because it probably don't make sense.
But he paid all cash. I know he has no mortgage on it. He paid all cash.
He doesn't, but you'll hear this from me a million times. One thing that you guys can always be assured of is people like will resist to the end of the world selling a house for less than what they paid for it. That's why when anybody says I bought it a year ago, I'm like, what'd you buy it for? And if that number isn't stupid low, then I'm like, yeah, we're probably not going to be able to work this out. I mean, likely I'm going to end up giving you less or offering you less than what you paid for it. Does that make sense? And if they're not like, yeah, it makes sense, I desperately need the money, then we just stop talking. Because I can tell you 1 out of 100, they're willing to take a loss. People, now I've seen people be like, you know what, I bought it for 120 years ago and I ain't selling it for a penny less, even though this roof's caving in. But if they bought it 20 years ago, then likely I could do that. I could pay them 100 because they've gained a lot of equity, a lot of value.
Yeah.
But when they bought something 3-4 years ago, there's just very little chance for us to get together because people will resist like nothing I've ever seen before. They will resist not losing money. That's everyone's greatest fear. Like when I've been doing a lot of research lately, a lot of people's biggest fear is losing money on a deal. Like they don't want to lose money. So with that being said, like in Europe, they're offering them 10K less than they have in it. You represent them losing money. People will break even in a second. You're like, I can get you out of this, and like make your pain go away. Like, oh, I'm in. I don't even need to make money. But what they won't do, you're like, okay, you got to bring 5K to the table. Like, oh, they could have it, and they don't want to do it. I've seen people worth tons of money and don't want to lose money. My hard money lender right now, I'm selling a deal for him, and I can't get the deal done. I got it on the market for 35 to 40,000, and he's like, I bought this for like 35, like 30 years ago, and I just don't want to sell it for less. He's turning down offers for 33, and they're like, dude, come on, man. Like, let's move on. You want to just re-rent this thing then? Why you got me selling it? But I'm working them. I mean, 6 months from now, I'll get him down. He'll go. Eventually, he'll go. The stuff I do to make like an $8 commission. But I'm just, he's a friend. I'm helping him out, and I have to help him go down the path of like, and he's worth a lot of money to be worried about $2-3 grand. But it's a principle thing. He proves my point that in principle, people will fight tooth and nail not to lose money. So your job is to assess whether they'll be in that situation or not. Gerhard, go one thing and then we're done. You're the last guy. So here, one thing you're running into.
I don't have a reframing. The thing I run into a lot that I wanted to actually ask you was, so I get the call, the guy goes, hey, you send me a letter for 123 Main Street. And I go, yes. And I just be quiet, but then nothing happens.
So I always say, yes, how can I help you?
Yeah. Like to
get the key
started, because I just don't,
that's it. How can I help you? It's a very good open-ended question. It'll make them start telling you. Often, like half the time when I say, how can I help you? People just go straight into everything. They answer like half my questions on the list.
Yeah.
So, okay. Thanks for calling. How can I help you? Right. That's it. Oh, okay. Yeah. I appreciate you calling. How can I help? Right. How can I help you? And that's it. That works perfect. That's
the other thing I battle with is I never get their people's name. Like, I never get a good way to ask them, by the way, who the hell are you? Because they just, they start out and they run like hell. Like, hey, you called me, you sent me a letter about this, and, we get into talking about the house and everything, but I never get to ask their name.
I got a perfect reframe for it. They never told you their name, but the reframe would be, you know what? And I want to apologize for this, but I never even asked your name. Like, I'm Gerhard, right? And then what was your name? Right. That's it. And then what was your name? And you just apologize. Like, so it's like a reframe. Like it's your fault that they didn't give you their name. They just called and randomly started saying, not even introducing themselves. So, you know what? I never even introduced myself. I'm Gerhard Marie. And what was your name? Right. And just say, I apologize for it. Like that's the reframe, that it's your fault. That's how you would reframe it. Anything else? Or how about when someone says, oh, I'm going to do one last reframe when someone says there's no deals on the MLS. Who can give me the reframe?
Sounds like you've been looking in the wrong place.
That's a start. That's kind of where I was thinking going with it. Yeah, it's so the reframe would be, wow, it sounds like you've been working really hard at finding a deal. Um, and I commonly hear that there's no deals on the MLS from a lot of people. I guess the only thing that makes me curious is I'm wondering how like some are getting deals, but most aren't, but then some are. I wonder what the dudes that are getting the deals are doing different.
Yeah.
No wonder why they're getting deals and most people aren't. I bet there's something special. All right, and then somebody would be like, well, they know somebody, they got a connection. Yeah, absolutely, that could be the case. But I wonder if it's just something they figured out that's working for them. It isn't something so, crazy like they know someone. Because, I mean, it's the truth, by the way, right? I mean, I figured out how to get deals on the MLS. And, Glory used it and got a deal on the MLS, no problem. Right? Sabina used to follow it up with the wholesaler until it drove him crazy and he gave her a deal. Right? That's how we do it. Like you followed the script the other day and you got a deal. He's gotten deals on the MLS. Ray wouldn't say that because he gets plenty of deals on the MLS. But imagine there's people in your market that say that aren't doing what you're doing. And there is in every market.
Yeah.
Your deal, Gerhard, has more to do with like you finding your right spot, right? Finding that perfect spot. And when we find that, there's going to be a little gold mine there, and we'll figure it out. But so we know that like there's deals. We just have to figure out where they at, why are they at, and we'll figure it all out. So anyhow, you as soon as you made one change, you got a deal. So it kind of proves that it's a process problem, not a market problem. It always tends to be like if you get that. So when the tougher the market is, or the tighter the market is, the better your processes have to be. And right these days, when everyone's like, well, you don't understand how it is in my market. It's so amazing. It's so freaking over the top challenging. Everyone wants deals. I'm like, well, okay, well, show me a market that ain't the case so we can all fly there and create a new location together. Right. This magical fairyland with like Lucky Charms spread all on the ground. Like, I mean, I don't know where that is, but I've not heard of it. I've heard some people talk of it, but it's like, I don't think it actually exists. I think it's just some fake stuff people talk about when they dream about things being easier. They're not. You just get better. Oh, I think I actually seen something on Instagram. It said, don't wish things were easier, be better. I was like, that's a pretty cool saying. I was like, oh, that's awesome, actually. It said, don't wish things were easier, just be better.
Jim Roth said that.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, Jim Rohn.
Jim Rohn, yeah. Jim Rohn.
Okay. Yeah, that was a cool saying, actually. Yeah, I really like that saying. All right. Well, everybody, thank you for the call. Like some good stuff. If you catch me not reframing any negative or any complaining you're doing, then I want you to complain. And then my job is to reframe it and get it back into positive light. And then you can take the reframe back to your people and it'll be a whole framing cycle of positivity and everyone will be happier.
Yeah.
Does everybody enjoy the training?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yep. Awesome.
I think the reframes are probably the reframes are kind of like a script in and of themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah, they are. That's why I wanted to give you this stuff, because this all is like a big part of delivering the scripts.
Yeah, it's so disarming. And that's the thing, like Michael and like Garrett, like even Sabina, like when they're mailing stuff out and people are like just coming at you like guns blazing. It's like, what do they call it? Like the verbal jujitsu or whatever, where you like take the energy that they're ready to throw at you
Yeah.
and kind of turn and use it to kind of benefit the situation.
Yeah, verbal judo.
Yeah.
But it is challenging to do that because when somebody does it, your natural reaction when you're in a corner is to
fight. Yep.
Yeah, reframing is good. I like that. I'm going to look into that more.
Yeah, I'm going to watch some more YouTube videos on it as well, or some research some books. It's interesting. Yeah.
It is interesting, and it really is. Like I said, it's like positive affirmations and reframing the way you think about things. I'm actually going to do some YouTube videos too. So we'll talk more about it in our next time we talk, if anyone has something. So what I'll do is we won't do the same day next week, but I'll try to put another training together, and we'll start going through some of the scripts, and we'll try to find that. We had a list of scripts. Does anybody know where that list of scripts is by any chance? So I feel like I was taking it, but I can't find the notes, and I don't know what happened to my notes.
I think it was started on Facebook, but I always get confused. I can't ever find anything on Facebook. I'm horrible with that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, crap. Let me tell you two things for anyone who can come. We have a training this weekend, so we expect Michael Chow to be there. Like, it's not that long of a drive, man. Get in your car and come.
It's just 17 hours. I won't sleep.
Yeah, well, you have plenty of time. There's way more than 17 hours.
Top ramen, I'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. You'll be good. You'll be fine. But that's one thing, just for infield training, for who can make it. Everybody's only here is pretty much not local, except for Sabina. But then also I have a questionnaire, and I don't know if you guys seen that. Anyone who fills the questionnaire out, I'm going to pick 3 people. It won't be a bunch of people in this contest that I'm giving. It's a half-day giveaway where I literally am going to spend a half day with you and just like break your whole business down, treat you to lunch. If somehow Mike wins or somebody else, then I'll have to work something out. You guys that are really far away, but you guys are local enough you could drive here. But Mike, if you win somehow, then we'll work something out. We might have to do like a half a day Zoom or half a day call or something where we can just break everything down.
I want to go to that donut shop for lunch.
I'm on a diet for 60 days, so no donuts, man. Don't even mention it. Whole30, but I'm doing it twice. And I'm already feeling great. The day into it, I'm like already feeling amazing. Because I was starting to eat too many of those donuts, and it kind of started back from the donuts. I've been on a whole downward spiral of donuts. But I'm doing a half-day business breakdown, so it's going to be just me diving through like everything you're doing. You guys kind of get that with me now, but it would just be an opportunity for you to get like a long 3 to 4 hour session with me. So it's awesome. All I'm asking you to do in return is to take 10 minutes and fill out a survey for me that can help me improve what I'm doing with you. Really, I want to get like into the emotions of like why you guys chose to work with me, different things, because that'll help me really take this curriculum and make sure that it's like really fitting for what you want it in the first place. So you guys and the mastermind students are the only ones that are in it. So that's it. Nobody else is in this, and it's pretty cool. So it'd be something that make sure you all do it, because it'd be a cool thing to win. And I'm doing it with 3 people. So yeah, that'll be a very small group of us working on some cool stuff. Free bonus training. Does that sound like is that a good gift? Everybody okay with as a contest, like a pretty cool thing to win?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably, I was thinking about giving people like $50 or something. I was thinking like, yeah, they'll probably like this more. This is way more valuable than $50.
More valuable.
Or maybe like a cruise or something.
I give you a cruise like Curtis Bay, Maryland. The cruise right to New Jersey, right? Hoboken, New Jersey. Get that one for $99.
99 cents.
Yeah, your own food. So the link is on there. I posted it up. I know I've been posting a lot of stuff lately. I'm trying to post in the groups more often and stay in contact. So if you guys, I don't know how to like tag you on it, but I would just suggest everybody checks in on the groups. There's a lot going on. I'll be putting some motivational stuff in there. So try to check in a couple times a week if you can, if you're not on the groups much. And anything you guys have on the group for us, what I would suggest, what I really want to create for everyone is start sharing some of your wins and losses, some of the things you're struggling with, some of the things you're winning with. I don't think I know this is probably true for most of us, is we don't really share our wins too much, right? We're always like, we win, and then we kind of just go to the next thing and we forget to celebrate. And it's a big part. Like I struggle with that. So if you guys start sharing your wins, I'll share some of mine, and we could share some of our losses too. It doesn't have to all be wins, but wins are pretty important, because I think people like us, we just do. And we're constantly doing, and we never think about the wins we get. Like Sabina has a win right now, right? Her win is she's getting ready to finish her first rehab. She felt like it was a loss because she's like a week or 2 over schedule, but I was like, we don't even talk about a week or 2 over schedule. That's like great job. All right, so not a loss at all. She's just about done and going to have it on the market. So it's a huge win, right? So give her a woohoo. Woohoo! Nice job.
That's your first rehab? Well, I thought you've done a few.
Not her first rehab. She's done a few, but this is her first one.
First with Mike, and
Yes.
first time ever I applied many things that, so I used to like tear off everything and build like everything new.
Mhm.
And this for the first time ever I learned from Mike to keep stuff, to just put some additions on it to look good, like staining cabinets, keeping the existing like old style tile and putting the accent tile on it, like this kind of stuff. It was first time I've done it, and contractor resisted a lot, saying that I will not be able to sell it like this and so on. But we both are happy with how it turned out to be.
Yeah, I'm sure it's beautiful. So
Yeah.
first rehab doing it that way. Mike's actually, he's done a bunch of rehabs, but this will be his first rehab that me and him are kind of working really hard to take his process and make it like a lot better, because it has, every process has room to grow. My coach constantly punches on me today, 10 years into this, like, Mike, make it better. How could you make it better? And I'm like, you can't make it better. And that's like the guy saying it's impossible. And he's like, well, if it was possible, what would it look like? Like, if you could make it a little better, what would that look like? And then I'm like, oh man, come on. He does that to me all the time. He reframes it. He reframes my weakness. So Mike's doing a deal now. He actually has a second deal under contract that he's working on, trying to wholesale. So good job, because he's, most of his time with me, we've been just working on getting through his rehabs he already had, and, you know, building some systems around that. And now he's actually finding some deals, 2 deals recently, and that's awesome. And you didn't have to spend a bunch of money on them, because he was like spending some decent money on marketing before, and these came pretty affordably. Like, they weren't real expensive. One came from a wholesaler, so it came best price ever, $3.99. The best price you can ever get. So good job, Mike. Let's give him
My
a
first
clap.
deal from a wholesaler. Yeah.
Yes, there you go. Now you know it's real. You can
Now
get
I'm
good
a believer.
deals.
I'm a believer now.
You can get good deals that you don't have to pay a bunch of money for. It's awesome. Let's give him a clap real quick. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
But yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. Definitely take a win on that. And I just learned so much from you since working with you, Mike. I learned how to, buy my own furniture, stage my own houses. I learned how to deal with contractors much more efficiently, hiring them, how I pay them, much. Things have improved a lot. My processes, like as far as hiring, screening, and paying contractors, gotten a lot better. And my marketing spend gone way down. I'm just less stressed now because I'm not spending like $10K a month on marketing. And it's really true what you said. Like, you should really track your marketing, make sure you get your ROI. Like, you spend like $1,000 or $2,000 before you scale up to 10,000. I went from like literally spending $1,000 a month to like 10,000 overnight without blinking, and spent too much money on marketing.
Yeah, no, dude, you're doing great, man. I'm very proud of you.
Now
good
it's
job
like
on it.
3K a month. The last deal I got, that'll cost me less than 3K, and I'm probably gonna make like a lot more than that when I assign it, or if I close on and rehab it, I'll make like a lot more than 3K.
Yeah,
like 10 times more than that.
You will. Dude, well, good job. I mean, that's awesome, and very proud of you for doing that. So, like, take some time to celebrate that win. It feels like, I know you probably feel like, oh, I've worked hard, I deserve it, but it's still a win, man. So, great job. Give him a clap, man. Oh, why Mike didn't get any claps? Because he's from another country? Like, come on, man. He's our neighbor. We're technically like friends. It's not like he's from Russia or anything.
Yeah.
It's Gerhard. One thing that I'm really proud of for you that is he followed the process and did a presentation, and he was getting a bunch of no's. And like the first time he did it after the 3-day weekend, or I don't know if it was first deal he did that, but the first time he followed that process, like the guy just said yes. And he was getting so many no's, and like people were just like, yep. And he's got a deal, and he sold it and made some money, right? And he put some dollars back in his pocket and wholesaled it off, worked the whole thing out. I think what's possible for you, Gerhard, now that you've done this, is like I really see everything changing as far as like I think you'll be able to now take and do this more often, keep following it, and you're going to get a lot more yeses, man. And man, it's going to feel great getting yeses. So take some time. I don't know if you took any time to celebrate the fact like that's our first deal we did together, right? As your coach, and in our relationship that you were able to put together. And it's the first, like anytime that happens, it's a huge step. Because it means you can continue. Anytime you do anything once, you can do it again. All right? That's it. We can do it over and over.
It's good when you know the system works, right? Because then you can work with it.
Yes, and then and I don't have to go redesign it now. So it's good for me too. I'm like, holy crap. Glad that worked for him. Like, no, it's working really. Like Rashad used it recently because he hadn't been doing it. He'd just been watching me like kind of go in, and I can kind of do it in my head. And I sent him on his own, and I said, follow the process from the 3-day camp. And he did it, and the people signed just like that. And then he did it again. They signed just like that. It's like, I think he's only used like 3 or 4 times and got like 3 yeses out of 4. Obviously he's doing it with people who are pretty lined up well. Oh, good job.
The one I did, I presented to the guy, and my offer was like, I showed him on my computer, like, I'd be like around 60. He goes, yeah, this is 40. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, if you show him why, right? If you show him why, it makes sense.
Well, he was 20 grand under what I was giving him. I didn't even get the number out. I mean, I'm talking about 60, and he's like, yeah, 40 sounds about good.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Cool. Then you sold it for more, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is the guy that doesn't want to make up his mind. So working on that.
So go follow the process, go get in front of him, present to him, and that should help him make his mind up or get some clarity to why he's not able to make his mind up. So yeah, keep good job on that. Let's give Gerhard a clap. Can we have a better clap than last time? Yeah, like I thought that was super.
Why you clap?
Thank you guys. That was a
We
good
need
one.
a soundboard.
I know. I need a clap thing. I'll get some sound stuff. Ray's big accomplishment is Ray started a construction company last week with Hannah. 2 weeks ago, his contractor kind of flaked out on him and gave him a lot of crap, said that, told him cannot do the demo for under 1,000. No one can do that. You can't make money, whatever he said. Bunch of, it's not possible again, right? And then Ray and Hannah went and did it in like 4.5 hours themselves. So I'm just like super proud of that, man. That is such a win, Ray, because like you guys being able to go do that yourself is big. You took your power back, right? The power that the contractors try to steal from you when they tell you stuff that doesn't make sense, and it will creep in. Like if every once in a while you don't go out and just do it, it creeps in that it's true. So I've had even where they've had me second guess myself as much as I've done at this. That's why even just like in the last year, I've went and worked in houses. Like somebody's like, no, you can't do that. And then I ended up doing an infield training saying like, I will put the cabinets in at Tanya's house. We did it in 3.5 hours. Like I'm talking about like Faisal and people that don't know. None of us knew anything. Like nobody was very handy. In 3.5 hours, we put the things in, and somebody was telling us that they need $1,000 to put the cabinets in, and you can't take 2 days for 2 guys. And like you guys are qualified at this, and I just got a bunch of unqualified people to do it. So, dude, you being able to take that power back is something to celebrate. It's the first step into you completely taking control of your construction process. Right? You're gaining an understanding. You don't mean you need to do it, but it just means that you now understand it really well. No one's ever going to take advantage of Ray again when it comes to demo, right? Because now he knows 100% conclusively that demo takes 2 random people a half a day to do, maybe a day tops, but that no 1,000. They wouldn't even do it for the 1,000. It's crazy, right? They're just like giving him crap about his price. And I don't know, it ended up costing him nothing. But even if he'd got a couple people, he could have done it for a few hundred. So, dude, great job, man. What else do you have? You have anything else that you're proud of that you want to celebrate, Ray?
Just working through the contractors. It's like I said, I was telling you on the call, like we definitely it was definitely a blessing and a curse having the same contractor for almost 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just kind of naturally just kind of fell apart. And really, honestly, not even a bad way. There was really like no falling out. It just kind of disintegrated. But just kind of going through and I was kind of doing it backwards. I'm actually, when we wrap up here, I'm going to post that ad tonight for the contractors. But that's really going to kind of be the new challenge. Is that's where I get frustrated, is when I know the reality of what it takes to get something done. And when you just get so many people that give you pushback. So I realize that can be a flaw too, because my personality is, well, screw them, I'll just do it. But that's not my best ROI activity.
It's not, but it's a great ROI right now because you need it so bad, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not a long-term play. I don't ever preach that you should like become your own painter, right? That just don't make no sense. You didn't get into this to be a construction worker, but at the end of the day, like if you're like, Mike, I'm going to go paint a house. Like I think Michael Chow jumped into some stuff and did it himself. And I'm like, dude, good for you, man. You put a little money in your pocket and you take control of your rehab. When you gain that kind of control, you walk around tall when you're talking to your contractors. When you know that you can get, so like, and if you're like Sabina, maybe she doesn't want to go do any work in the house, right? Because she don't want to go just swing a hammer or anything. Well, for her, she can gain control simply by just having more than one person to work with, having options, right? Having some people like a Rolodex of people she can lean on. And again, that's the key. So it's all about being in control. And you took a lot of control back by doing that. And so there's many ways to take control back, but great job. And that was super awesome. And yes, don't worry about whether it's your highest ROI, because long term, you'll get to see what the real ROI of you being able to take control and manage your rehabs. It's something that so few people do. When I spoke at Flip Hacking Live, I don't think you went this year, right, Ray? But when I spoke there, I had a contractor table, and my table had 3 levels deep around it. It was like 50% of the people out of like 13 tables, 50% of the people were standing around my table. When I spoke in the room about contractors, like fire marshal came in, people were standing outside the door, sitting on the floor. And what I got from that is that there's just nobody's mastered this, man. And there was dudes in the room that I know were doing 50, 60 houses a year, and they're sitting in the room taking notes because they just like, no one feels in control of this. So there's the reason why is because for so long, bigger pockets and everyone's preached that you need GCs and you need this. And they preach this like, you're crazy. Like smart people don't get involved in the work. Smart people just outsource it. Like, yeah, I've not seen a success story with that, by the way. I've just not. If you're really running a big like flipping business, well, let's just admit that you're kind of a construction business too. Right? If you felt like a general contractor recently, Sabina, a little bit, right? I mean, you definitely better have some general. And what are you learning? What are you working on? General contractor skills. We're all general contractors.